Tonight on the Black Channel, we are joined by a special guest from none other than the Green Party. Welcome to the program, Dr. Ware. We're very glad to make your acquaintance, sir.
Good to be here.
All right, sir. Well, obviously, you don't need an introduction, but you're going to get one anyway. So, vice presidential candidate for the Green Party. I interviewed your predecessor for my last documentary, so I'm glad to make your acquaintance here as well. We talked to Dr. Stein, so now we're talking to Dr. Ware. So we wanted to go ahead and just jump right off, and then we have a number of different things I wanted to discuss here. Let me start off with first questions first here.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would you want to go jump off in this meat grinder at this level here? Why would you want to do this?
I'd be lying if I said that I don't periodically ask myself that very question. I was minding my own business, my own good business. We won't use any curse words. Getting ready for classes. I do a lot of online community education, a lot of organizing work as well. I hosted Dr. Jill Stein for an Instagram Live to ask about the platform. And I'll just say, why I got pulled in. I had just made a post about Kamala Harris and her refusal to do anything regarding reparations for African Americans. And I asked Dr. Jill about her standpoint on reparations, and she said they behave as though it's incalculable, but it's been calculated many times by specialists. Between 10 and $13 trillion is what's owed to the descendants of the enslaved, and I'm in favor of cash payments. So sister got my attention with that. Then I asked the question, I said, well, what is your overall view of American foreign policy? Because we know you're against the genocide in Gaza, anti-Zionist Jewish white woman who actually got arrested at a Free Palestine protest. So I asked, what's your overall vision of American foreign policy? She said, my overall vision of American foreign policy is to dismantle the American empire. So I have to admit, as a, lifelong, Pan-Africanist, anti-imperialist, was reading, Amilcar Cabral and Kwame Nkrumah and Walter Rodney when I was 17, 18 years old. This, piqued my attention. 24 hours after that Instagram Live interview, they asked me if I would consider joining the campaign. And so I put in calls to all of my, teachers and spiritual guides and mentors, my family members, and really, kind of vetted the process, but it had to be a relatively short window. Ultimately, the reason why I accepted the invitation is that I perceived in the Green Party an opportunity to really realize a set of emancipatory and liberatory goals regarding Black liberation, certainly, but also anti-imperialist struggle that, have been like my aspirations since I was 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X cover to cover in one night. I read an English translation of the Quran cover to cover the next night. I converted to Islam before the end of the week, and I was, baptized into the Black radical tradition in that same span. And so I saw this as an opportunity to really stand up against imperialism, white supremacy, and capitalist exploitation of our people and of all people of color in this moment. So yeah, I tagged into the fight. I was not going to back down from the fight. The last thing that I'll say in response to this first question is that you can run tape on me, especially in the Black Muslim community and Muslim community more broadly. The kind of African descendant community. My teaching and work has been known. If you run tape over the last 20 years, you'll never hear me talking about running for elected office. I never considered, seeking the political kingdom, so to speak. But I realized that perhaps the best people to be positioned to be in positions of public service are those who do not personally aspire to authority in that way. My goals are really just about fulfillment of the liberation dreams of our ancestors, and to restoring, not even restoring, to making manifest for the first time the promises of American democracy, and to make America keep its promises to all the people that's made promises to.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Let me find out a few things here. When we speak about reparations, you're obviously interested in cash payments, so certainly you see it in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, who do you think should get reparations?
Yeah, I mean, the Green Party platform has been pretty clear on this. You know, the Green Party's been running on a reparations now platform since 2012, and you know the basis of that has always been lineage-based reparations, specifically for slavery, but also for you know the kind of post-slavery you know genocidal practices of the American you know government. There are all kinds of legal reasons and constitutional reasons why you wouldn't structure reparations on a race, you know, quote unquote, racial basis. As a historian of, you know, I'm trained, you know, as a historian of Africa, as a historian of African American history and Islamic intellectual history. Those are where I did my degrees at the University of Pennsylvania before going on to teach at Northwestern, Michigan, and now UC Santa Barbara. I've taught for years that Blackness as an ontological category was never dependent on the European pseudoscientific notion of race. So I certainly wouldn't think about giving out or administering reparations on a racial basis, so to speak. Having said that, it is obvious that racialized, you know, policies of the American government have not only affected, you know, what we might refer to as American freedmen, the descendants of the people that were enslaved by the United States of America and by the colonies that preceded it. But the racist policies of the United States of America have also affected other Black folk, you know, that have come to these shores at different points in time. So, you know, a reparations agenda, you know, should be, you know, designed primarily, in my view, and in the, you know, kind of structure of the policy of the Green Party to redress those fundamental, you know, kind of historical wrongs that were never, you know, addressed. And at least conceptually, and, you know, and I think that it's important that we develop the modalities of reparations in dialogue with our communities, that it's not something that should be, you know, program from the top down. It's really something that we should be, you know, listening. You basically you don't tell people how they're gonna get their check. You ask them how do they want their check, right? So that's part of it. But what I'll just say is that conceptually, I do like to draw a divide between reparations, you know, kind of that are around kind of the African descendant community that comes out of slavery in the United States of America, and restorative justice for kind of racialized oppression. And I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive, but I do think that though it's useful to keep those things conceptually distinct.
Well, that's a good point I would like to get into there then. Let's not talk about legally or constitutionally, because I think you and I can both agree legal is defined by those in power. So
Outlaws that make laws,
you know,
basically. Yeah,
whatever the rule they tell you it is today, that's the rule they want it to be. And then
that's the
tomorrow,
rule they want it to
as
be.
long as it serves them. So when people say about what is constitutional or is not constitutional, I mean, you and I have both been alive and witnessed enough long enough to know that that's decided by whoever's in power. They decide whether it's constitutional or not.
Word
But
life. Yeah.
so I want to ask you personally, since let's just say, because in this instance, I mean, if you're elected, you would be a policy maker.
Yeah.
Your personal principle, what is your principle regarding reparations of who should get it? Not what you think may be determined by others as constitutional, but what is Dr. Ware's personal principle of who should receive it?
I mean, with again, if we're keeping that distinction that I just made between reparations and restorative justice, I think I already answered this question. I mean, I think that, you know, so I'll give you an example. So my father's family, so I go by Butch. The Muslim name that I chose for myself is Bilal. My government name is Rudolph. And if you look on the ballot, you'll find Jill Stein and Rudolph Ware. The reason why I chose that name for the ballot rather than either of the other two names that I'm known by is that Rudolph is also my grandfather's name, it is my father's name, and it is my son's name. Okay, now if you go back to the generation of Rudolph Sr. is from rural Georgia, not far from Ware County, where most of the African descended people that have the last name Ware were held in bondage in the last years before the Civil War. If you go back into WPA slave narratives, you can find the origins of my family lineage, my father's family lineage. on essentially three plantations. There was something between like 1,100 and 1,300 enslaved Africans that labored, without remuneration in bondage on the properties of three men with the last name Ware. One was a father, the other a son, and then a nephew. And so almost all of the wares that later get dispersed through, slave sales and through other, processes throughout Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and so forth, they go back to Ware County, Georgia. They go back in most cases to those three plantations. The people whose experiences mirror those are the ones to whom the federal government owes its principal debt, because the federal government violated its own laws, its own constitutions, its own principles. It expropriated the labor of those people. It subjected those people, our people, to labor demands, illegal kind of weaponization of all kinds of federal authority in order to not give the freedmen that which they were due, then systematically expose them to regimes of terror and expropriation to keep any kind of generational wealth from being accumulated, to the point where, like, if you take a city like Boston, for example, in our current era, the average median net worth of a Black family in Boston, when you include the debt, is $8. Whereas the average median wealth for a white family in Boston metro area is $250,000. And what my point is with regards to reparations is that, we've all heard about 40 acres and a mule, right? And when we talk about the modalities of reparations, land is one of those things that should be a pillar, because there's been all kinds of, by hook and by crook, efforts, especially in the South, but also in other places, to get Black folk off of their land, to expropriate their land through all kinds of illegal, violent, and unconstitutional means.
Well, back to that constitutional thing, because it depends on who's doing it. Let me try this another way. You didn't
like the answer?
Well, no. What I'm saying is, no. I might have been misunderstood here. Let me try this a different way, because I want to make sure I'm properly understood. I think I have a better way of asking. Okay. Who does Dr. Ware believe is not entitled to reparations?
I'm not sure that particular phrasing of the question, helps. So I'll just finish with the previous answer. So those people, those that are descended from the African population that was held in bondage and systematically disadvantaged thereafter, those are the people to whom reparations as such would be due. There are all kinds of other Black folk, African descended people who should have means of restorative justice, because there are all kinds of ways in which the racialized policies of the United States of America in subsequent periods over the course of the 20th and 21st century have also disadvantaged Black folk who are not kind of foundational, lineage-based descendants from those enslaved populations. So that's part of the reason why I said conceptually it can be useful to draw a distinction between reparations, which should be for the descendants of those enslaved in America, and restorative justice, which can be approached, in broader terms.
Right. So you don't think that it would be limited to just a conversation about lineage. You think that's one conversation, but you also think the lineage.
If you want me to I'm trying to say this. If you want to make this a conversation about reparations, then you think about reparations in terms of lineage. If you want to make this a conversation that is about, the broader policies of, destroying Black communities, then that's a question for restorative justice, and that there's a space, for conversation and the development of those policies in dialogue with communities.
Right. And that's what I refer to as reparations across the board. Is not just limited to cash payments, but also taking into account how these systems have evolved. But of course, the number one thing is who it would be focused on, because in our experience, what has happened is our big problem with dealing with
who's the we in that hour.
Those of us who draw our lineage back to the slave fields of America, and are now demanding what we are owed because
Understood.
if
Yeah.
we are going to be legal aliens, which is what we are, our goal is to cure and rectify that particular status of being, which is of course going to be disruptive.
Internally colonized people, as Huey P. Newton put it.
Right.
Yes.
But there are a lot of other things that have been used to destabilize that. There are certain policies. So whenever we're, quote, given something, they always make sure they include something else that neutralizes whatever it was. And that's the thing that we're battling with now, is to make sure that Trojan horses aren't brought in with the policies, which is what we've experienced throughout the centuries now, is that if they do something, they make sure there's a Trojan horse that comes along with it that'll basically neutralize whatever it was they just did. So that's why we fight so hard to say we need to be very, very specific about who we're referring to and who we're not, so that we know what it is we're actually supporting. For example, when Kamala Harris says, I want to make an economic opportunity thing for $20 million or whatever, and then says she's yelling black, black, black. But when you read the actual paper, it literally says the same thing it always says, which is black and minorities, people of color, disenfranchised communities,
everybody else is going to get their cut before
and that basically neutralizes whatever you just said, and everything that comes after that neutralizes that. So that's the reason why we are very, very meticulous about wanting to make sure we're clear about when we talk to people about what exactly they mean and who they don't mean.
Yeah. So good. Thank you for the precision, and it helps me understand the nature of the question. So just to be clear, right? Kamala Harris, I mentioned that I had just posted something from Kamala Harris. So her literal and exact words were, when asked about reparations, she said, I will never do anything that only helps Black people. Okay. Those were her literal and exact words. And despite her, cosplay Blackness, and by the way, let's just be explicit about this. Kamala is to politics what Drake is to hip hop. Okay, what did Kendrick is cosplay Blackness? What did Kendrick say? You come through Atlanta when you need a few dollars. You ain't a colleague, you's a colonizer. Okay, and that's all she is. She comes through this community when she wants to shake us, turn us upside down, and shake some change loose from our pockets. But she has no intention in any way of doing anything for our community. So as you said, when you read into the fine print, you see programs that are rising tide lift all boats type Ronald Reagan nonsense, because she's been to the right of Ronald Reagan for her entire career. Okay. And so yes, if you are asking me the question, no, this is not meant to be, social programs that are designed for everyone. This is meant specifically to redress the historic genocidal practices and expropriation of labor and land and wealth from the people that the United States held in bondage, and that we strongly encourage those of our brothers and sisters that are of Caribbean background, Jamaican, and from Barbados and so forth, to get redress of the same kind from their own colonial overlords. And for those, that have been, the Black folk that have migrated, from the Caribbean and from the African continent over the course of the 20th century in more recent terms, then restorative justice for the ways that racialized policies have also affected them are also in order. But that does not remove the primary burden of reparations, properly speaking. And reparations, properly speaking, is the beginning of actually making America, keep to its promises. So I hope that gives you, a clear enough answer. And the last thing I'll say about this is, yes, you got to hold these people, to their language, because these liberals and these conservatives, as Malcolm put it, Malcolm being my teacher at distance, Malcolm said that the liberal is a wolf. It bares its teeth. You think that it's smiling at you, but you are on the menu. The liberal is a fox. It hunts by cunning and by guile. It bares its teeth. You think it's smiling, but you are on the menu. The conservative is the wolf. And the conservative, when it bares its teeth, its intent. Well, these are two predators that differ only in the modality of the hunt. The Green Party does not have liberals or conservatives. The Green Party is concerned with restorative justice, land back for Native communities, Hawaiian sovereignty, sovereignty for Puerto Rico, DC statehood, and reparations for the Black population that was held in bondage in this place.
Okay, let me find out what
So
is
this,
your.
this is a different political model entirely than these lying, braying jackasses that you find in these other two parties.
Okay, let me find out about something different here. What is your position on a black hate crime bill?
Where do I sign? I mean, everybody seemed like they get hate crime protection, except for the people that are victims of the most hate crimes. I mean, so yeah. Next question.
Okay, what do you think about the border crisis? How would Dr. Ware as vice president, if we made you the border czar instead of Kamala, what would be your approach to it?
Well, my approach is built off of Dr. Jill's approach to the so-called border crisis. So I asked her about this border crisis in the Instagram live interview that I did with her, and I found her responses to be very sound and enlightening. So the first thing that she said, in paraphrase, she said that properly speaking, the United States of America doesn't have a migrant crisis. We have first and foremost a racism crisis. So migrants are demonized both by liberals and conservatives as being economic burdens and as bringing criminality and so forth to the United States of America. Whereas every single study makes it clear that immigrants, undocumented immigrants, every sort of immigrant is an economic benefit to the United States of America, that people pay more in taxes than they pull out. And of course, because America's the most violent country on earth, you're obviously going to have fewer violent crimes committed by migrants than you have committed by Americans, because there ain't nobody more violent than those of us that are already here. But more than this, she then elaborated, insofar as we do have an immigration crisis, it is one that our own foreign policy has provoked. So she said that the first thing is if you understand the goals of American foreign policy as dismantling the American empire, as I mentioned before, then that means that you are no longer destabilizing Central America with CIA assassinations and military juntas that send populations fleeing from political violence, economic destabilization, and every manner of devilry, so that you do have, an administrative crisis at the border. It is impossible to process all the people that are set loose by this kind of systemic violence. The best way to avoid that kind of migration crisis is to not cause it in the first place. But then the last part of this is the part that has always been most interesting to me, and this is the part that I personally would be interested in exploring, is that I probed Dr. Jill on this particular question, and I asked, she was giving an answer to a separate question, and she talked about treating America's drug epidemic as a public health problem rather than an opportunity for the carceral state to lock up Black and brown people. Okay, and I thought that this was interesting, so I gave some follow-up questions on this. And the idea here is that you legalize cannabis, you have all of these other substances become controlled substances that the government is essentially treating as addiction problems. And by legalizing these substances and administering healthcare, public health for people with drug addictions, then essentially you decriminalize the whole drug complex, which disempowers cartels in Central America because they are no longer drug dealers.
Well, I want to ask about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk to me.
You made a point there. I'd like to get a little more detail on that.
Yeah.
You said that no one was more violent than those of us who are already here. Could you give me a clarification on what you mean by that?
I just mean that the United States of America, I mean, I think that there's one of the Eastern European republics that competes with us in the number of, kind of shootings per capita. But otherwise, the United States of America is by far, the most violent country in the world with respect.
More violent than Jamaica?
Yeah.
More violent than the Bahamas.
Yes.
More violent than Mexico. More violent than Colombia.
Yes, and study after study shows this that we have more gun violence than these places. As I mentioned, it's one of the Eastern European republics, and the name is slipping, but I can provide you the citations to the studies because I studied this carefully when I came onto the campaign. So the United States of America is the only country in the world that has more guns than people by a factor of, I think it's almost 2 to 1 at this point in time. So all of that is just to say that we have, this, and of course, um, included in that violence is the violence of police against the citizenry, right? So we've had in the last 4 years more people killed by quote unquote law enforcement in every single year since the George Floyd murder than in prior years. So yes, despite the fact that we hear terrifying things in the mainstream media which always wants to portray so-called third world countries as places of where the specter of violence looms. The specter of violence looms nowhere more than the United States of America. I'll just give you a quick point on this, right? There is still a travel advisory for visiting the country of Senegal. Senegal is where I did my PhD research, learned to speak the Wolof language fluently, the French colonial language fluently for archival research, and reading Arabic for my documentary research. When I went to and there's still state advisories talking about how violent and dangerous it is because there's a latent separatist movement in the Casamance region, tiny region, tiny the separatist movement. When I first went there in the mid 1990s, I asked a close friend of mine how many murders there are a year in Senegal, and he responded by saying, "Murders?" He said, "You mean when somebody kills someone on purpose?" Right? He had to clarify. And in that country, at that point in time in the mid 90s, that number was 9 or 10 in a population of something like 6 million people. Now, I came out of Washington, D.C. when it was the murder capital of the United States. We had 600 plus murders a year in a city that had a population of 600,000. My wife is from Stockton, California, and Stockton has vied with the other cities in the U.S. for the distinction of being the murder capital of the United States of America. We kill people routinely in this country. So yeah,
I think if you look at the like I said, I think that's a good place for folks to research because America, when you take a look at per capita around the world, for 100,000 people, I think I think there'd be conflicting data in that regard. But I do want to ask you about
there may be conflicting data, and you can produce your studies, and I can produce mine. But I can tell you that there's multiple studies that show that on a per capita basis, and
well, I think people would be well served to check into that because
happy
that would be
happy to share those to my social media feed, within the next few days.
well. I want to ask you about what you were saying there about illegals coming across the border there because I did have a question about that. You said that they are
I don't call people illegals.
okay.
Yeah. You just said that Babylon makes the rules. You just said that these are outlaws that are deciding what is or isn't constitutional. So
Well,
I don't.
I'll get to that in just a moment. I want to
Yeah.
ask you a question about something you said there, just so I
Sure.
can get a little more clarity on that. I think that was an interesting perspective. What is the benefit that we, as the freedmen and descendants of the slaves, what benefit do we receive from people coming into America illegally? What's the benefit we get?
Again, I reject the premise of the question on a number
Okay, well
of
that's fine. But what benefit do we get from people crossing the border coming over here? What benefit do we receive?
in our current kind of environment of racial divide and conquer. We would get the benefit in a Steinware regime of not having a constant politicization of brown versus black communities, because what that is essentially a fundamental expression of is the divide and conquer policies of a white supremacist government. So let's just talk about the fact that when we talk about, people crossing over a border, quote unquote, illegally, we are talking about areas where people that are indigenous to North America are now excluded from migration into portions of North America from which they are indigenous by a white supremacist government. Okay, so just to understand that, like, for Black folk to adopt the settler colonial logic of the people that held us in bondage and to accept the demonization of Latin communities, by the way, many of whom are also themselves African descended. So it should be noted that, for example, New Spain, what became Mexico, there were more than 500,000 enslaved Africans brought into New Spain just in the 16th century alone. Many of those Mexicans, many of those migrants are people who have African descent as well. So there are numerous economic benefits that migrants bring to all communities, and I reject.
Right, I'm asking what's the benefit we're receiving, sir? I'm asking that. What are we getting?
Study after study shows that migration is a net economic benefit.
Name for me 2 Black neighborhoods that we've benefited from that from.
Oh, listen, if you want to talk about the ghettoization of our communities.
No, sir. Just name for me 2 Black neighborhoods that we've benefited from these folk coming.
Again, I reject the framing of the question, because what it is rooted in is essentially the idea that white supremacy wants to create an aliens versus predators war. Okay, they want a narrative that has indigenous inhabitants of the Americas suddenly turned into illegals and weaponized to provoke Black communities, and Black communities then framed as, dangerous criminals, so that you can have Black and brown people, crabs in a barrel, arguing with each other over ghettoized communities instead of turning their triggers, so to speak, the other way and fighting against the white supremacist system that keeps them both subjugated. The fundamental lessons of the struggle against white supremacy from the Black radical tradition, and this is the case for Stokely Carmichael, this is the case for Malcolm X, this is the case for James Baldwin, this is the case for all of our radical leaders, is that they understood that the principal enemy is white supremacy, and that which turns us against people who should be our fellow soldiers in the struggle for liberation against white supremacy, right?
It's you see them as fellow soldiers?
Without any question. There is no doubt that a bunch of racialized dynamics have absolutely produced anti-Blackness in a lot of Latin communities, in the same way that there is a lot of anti-immigrant ignorance in the Black community. And I think that this is a product of historical efforts to divide Black and indigenous populations, because white supremacy has always feared us standing shoulder to shoulder against the one that is genociding us both.
In Asia, in Indochina, in South America, they have long-standing historical track records of anti-Black racism that in some cases precedes European colonialism. And they bring when they come across that border, they didn't learn it over here. They were allowed to cross the border because they brought it with them. Is that do you have that perspective, or do you dispute that?
Well, so I mean, just to be clear, the history of anti-Blackness is not something that is reduced just to the rise of European white supremacy. We have, early cradles of anti-Blackness that occur in Jewish populations in the Fertile Crescent. There's a study called The Curse of Ham by a historian called David Goldenberg.
Right, and why would we support bringing it over?
So hold on. You asked me a question. You want me to answer it, or you don't want me to answer it?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that why would we want to bring that over? I'm agreeing with you right there, but why would we support bringing that over then? Now that you pointed out, why would we support that?
No, you're trying to stop the question where you're getting the answer that you want. And I'm trying to tell you that by reframing the question, then we arrive at a different set of conclusions. I am not accepting your border, your framing of illegal, your divide and conquer, between Black and brown communities. I'm trying to give a historian's answer to the question that you asked about anti-Blackness, which is something that I have literally written about and published, and in one of the world's most acknowledged authorities, especially on anti-Blackness in the Arab and Muslim worlds. Okay, so the question is that there is no place in the world where migration is going to come from that is going to be free from anti-Blackness, because the world has been infested with anti-Blackness predominantly because of white supremacist imperialism over the past 5 centuries, but there are antecedents for certain forms of anti-Blackness in other communities. That is not a logical basis for denying immigration status. If that was a logical basis for denying immigration status, then nobody from any country would be allowed into the United States of America, because there's anti-Blackness everywhere.
Right, but we don't support. We don't just say that it's.
Well,
I'm saying
see my point?
Yes, I see your point, but our point is it's not simply confined to the white folk who are here. The folk that they're bringing from other places, including Afro-Latino countries, including Afro-Caribbean, they bring that sentiment with them also. Shout out Sammy Sosa.
So then are we going to also excise the anti-Black people? Because we've got a bunch of those here as well. If that is the criterion, then we're going to have to pull out a full 40% of the American freedmen population who are infected with white supremacy right to the core?
What I'm saying is that these other folks don't even have a right, or unless I'm sorry, in your case, what you're saying is, let me make sure I understand you. What you're saying is that you don't actually acknowledge borders.
I didn't say that I don't acknowledge borders.
Okay.
Borders exist, but understand that before the first couple of decades of the 20th century, there was literally no such thing as a passport. So as you were questioning the legal basis and the constitutional basis of these framers, just understand that they have created those borders in order to thoroughly colonize you and to facilitate this kind of conversation where Black folks convince themselves that the problem is migrants flooding across the border who are poor and broke just the same way that we poor and broke, in some cases worse, instead of turning our focus on the people that keep us in a shared oppression. And that when I raise the intellectual arguments that have been framed by people like Huey P. Newton, who was a proponent of brown power and Chicano power, Fred Hampton, who was proselytizing to whites and to working class Latinos and so forth, that their argument was that victory in the struggle against the white supremacist oppressor required solidarity with the other people that have been victimized by white supremacy. Fighting for the crumbs from massa's table and saying me first, or me only is not the way to get free. That is literally the way in which African ethnic groups were pulled into participation in the Atlantic slave trade.
So your position is that white Latinos are poor and broke the same way we're poor and broke?
When did you hear me say that?
Sir, you just said that these other groups, that you said Latinos, these other groups who are poor and broke the same way we are.
You added an adjective that was not in my exposition. The adjective that you added was white. And I never said.
Okay, sir, are you saying that Latinos who come across the border are poor and broke the same way that we are poor and broke?
There are many people, who are working literally for pennies a day, shelterless, homeless, and struggling in many of the same ways. And in many basic ways, other communities have been subjected to the exact same kinds of familial separations. This border that you're defending with such vehemence breaks up families, right? People separated at the border the same way that our families were separated during the time of enslavement, and for the same basic reason, to ensure access to a cheap labor force. The reason why the border policies exist in the way that they do, and the racialized language exists in the way that it does, and the reason why teams blue and red both participate in it, is because what corporate capital wants is an easily controllable labor force that they can import and deport at their wish, that will be fragile and contingent. And without any question, that has produced and provoked a lot of animosity and mistrust between Latin communities and between Black communities. And we collectively have a lot of healing and solidarity work that is going to need to be done if we are going to get free from the systems that exploit us all, not in equal ways, not in uniform ways, but that certainly exploit us all.
Right. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that I don't twist people's words or take it out of context. That's in the context in which you used it, that they're poor in many ways the same as we are.
Again, you can run the tape from a few seconds ago, and I used none of those words in that order. So let's move on.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, you did, but.
No, I didn't. You said the same as we are. I said in many ways.
Yes, sir. And what I'm saying in our position is that's your perspective. That's a situation that we would have an issue with because of all the reasons I listed there before. But I'm glad to have your position on it. I just want to make sure everyone's clear on what your position on it is.
No, let me ask you a question. So is it your position then that the Latin community is not oppressed?
Not like us. Define oppressed. How are they oppressed?
Economically exploited, socially marginalized, racially incarcerated.
When you move 1,000 miles from one place to another by choice, that's oppression?
By choice. Okay, so was it by choice when Europeans assassinated rulers in West Africa, okay, and then replaced them with puppet regimes that would then install regimes of terror to enslave populations and sell those to Europeans? Are the people that fled from that kind of systematic white supremacist imperialist violence, are they fleeing voluntarily?
And there's the difference that we have when people make that point. We don't flee. We stood 10 toes down, and now all those people, because of our sacrifices, we had people assassinated. We can go down the whole list. We had people install puppet Negroes in front of us. The only difference between us and them is that we never ran. We didn't run 1,000 miles.
But the point is that you're not talking about people that are running 1,000 miles. A lot of times people are returning to their indigenous homelands. We're talking about places like Texas and California, which until relatively recent were part of what became Mexico.
So they're leaving Venezuela and coming to America.
Listen, when we talk about the destabilization of regions further in Central America, you can conflate different parts of the conversation.
So they're leaving Indochina and coming to America.
So I was told at the outset that there would be very little, sort of interruption.
Right, but here's the thing: I've got 18 minutes left. I think everyone will agree. I've let you speak a lot on here. I'm just trying to get some clarity. And what I'm saying is that before you get 50 miles down the road, I don't need you to get 50 miles down the road. You're naming these groups, and as soon as I say their names, you're backing off of them. And I just want to be clear. Okay, we can mention South America, but does that also include Indochina? Does that also include India? Does that also include a bunch of other folks? If I want to make sure we're clear, are you including them as well?
Let us be clear. Yes, there is a principal debt that the United States of America has incurred towards the foundational freedmen population due to its imperialist violence and its regimes of enslavement. But when you start talking about places like Indochina, you must also acknowledge that the United States of America has incurred debts of restorative justice to people that it has harmed through its empire. You cannot simply destabilize sow mass murder and wanton destruction in places like Iraq, where we killed 1 million civilians, in places like Afghanistan, where that number may be closer to 500 or 600,000. You mentioned Indochina, right? When you talk about places like Vietnam and Cambodia, we are responsible through our military industrial complex for ripping people's lives apart and destabilizing those lives. And just in the same way that the Europeans are now dealing with migration as a result of their imperialist policies of destabilizing the rest of the world, so too the United States of America is, as Malcolm might have put it, dealing with its imperialist chickens coming home to roost. Those are debts that our country has incurred through the extension of its military industrial complex, and those people that have grown up in these United States of America, I am running to be their vice president too, not just the vice president of Black people. And yes, I absolutely strongly stand on reparations for our people, and I thoroughly reject with the fiber of my being the demonization of immigration, because this is one of the principal tools of white supremacy weaponizing particular racialized groups against others, and I will not participate in it. And I would appreciate questions on another subject matter, because I feel I have made myself clear on this one.
I didn't get a response about which cities that you can name we benefit
And
from.
you will not. I told you my answer.
Okay. Can you name a third one?
So is that your way of, intentionally trying to antagonize your guest?
No, sir.
So then I politely requested that you move on to the next
That
question.
actually was not very polite of you, actually, sir. But I will acknowledge that that's what you said. That just wasn't very polite.
Okay.
And I don't think anyone listening to you would think that was a polite tone of voice.
There have been a number of ways that you've phrased questions that also haven't been polite, and I've been patient with those. So let's go ahead and finish the interview if you'd like to do so.
What is your position on abortion?
Not sure I understand the question.
There have been 80 million Black children who've been aborted since Roe v. Wade was passed. What is your position on abortion?
This plays a very specific role in my own personal story. I've talked about this in other environments, that when my mother was 15 years old and pregnant with me, she was encouraged by her high school guidance counselor to get an abortion, so that I would never be born and brought into this world. And there's no question that the way in which the American medical
Would you like to take a few minutes to compose yourself?
Excuse me?
You sound a little shaky.
I'm not shaky at all. I'm answering the question and I'm perfectly composed. Would you like to take a few minutes to compose yourself? I'm answering your question and you're interrupting me again. Can I finish my answer to the question?
I was trying to be polite, sir, but please carry on.
Were you now? Okay, so as I was saying, there are numerous ways in which the medical regimes and the social regimes of the United States of America have conspired against Black fertility. They want to keep our numbers down. My ex-wife went in for a routine checkup and left in tears because they made an effort to remove her uterus. After spuriously claiming that she would not be able to have any additional children. I had raised two stepdaughters up to that point in life. My ex and I had not had children of our own. I am now the proud father, of three beautiful chocolate brown children by that woman. And even though we have parted ways, I thank God every day that she didn't fall in for Uncle Sam's okie doke on the hysterectomies. In my own family, we've had people that have gone in for routine procedures of that kind and walked out incapable of bearing children. So there is no question that there are ways in which the American medical establishment has been absolutely designed to try to suppress Black fertility in every way. And I understand that there are certainly ways in which access to abortion has been can be understood as having had that same effect. My own position with respect to abortion rights is that I think that the repeal of Roe v. Wade has produced massive medical risk and medical trauma for people getting access to reproductive care that should be guaranteed to them and that should be matters that are decided between doctors and their families. And I am very much committed as a Muslim, and I should just also point this out, that the way in which abortion was traditionally constructed under Islamic law had nothing to do with the kind of right-wing approach to abortion that talked about life beginning at conception and so forth, that those things do not actually concur with what Islamic legal understandings were and so forth. So I'm very much in favor of defending a woman's right to choose. And if people don't like abortions, then they have every, they should have every right not to have one. And our community should be protected against the weaponization of reproductive care that is in point of fact, designed to, sterilize us the way that Black communities have been sterilized, Ethiopian communities sterilized in the Zionist entity of Israel, systematic sterilization of Black folk, here in the United States over the course of time.
Do you believe there should be any limits on abortion?
And of course, there should be limits on everything. There's almost nothing that should be left, completely unregulated. But I think that a lot of the kind of common sense, regulations that most Americans agree on as, essentially 60-40 issues, something like 16 weeks and other such, I won't go into kind of the fine points on it, but of course there have to be limitations, there have to be regulations of abortion without any question.
Well, I spoke to Dr. Stein. She differs with you on that. So
So I mean, it depends on how you frame the question with respect to I just said that abortion should be regulated insofar as there are medical.
Dr. Stein does not.
What was her answer?
Her answer was that it is between a woman and her doctor. When I asked her about what the limitations should be, she said the limitation is it should be between a woman and her doctor, and the state shouldn't be involved, so there would be no limitations.
Well, but okay. So it should be, and that was what I led with, is that it should be, a familial decision between a woman and her doctor, as we discussed. But even under prior regimes, there were regulations with respect to when certain kinds of procedures would take place and under what circumstances. So I don't think that there's the difference in the answers is significant.
Do you agree with the idea of biological males playing in female sports?
Biological males playing in female sports?
Yes.
I don't think that biological males should play in female sports. I think that it gives an unfair, competitive advantage. And I think that the politicization of, of transgender rights is frankly, right-wing talking points that Black folk have been, kind of indoctrinated with over the course of time. I don't think that this is a major social issue. I don't think that our freedom, I don't think that our liberation, I don't think that our escape from under the yoke of white supremacy is predicated on this question in any way. And I think that one of the things that is most emancipating about the Green Party agenda is that it has not participated in the culture war between liberal extremists and conservative extremists. The basic premise of the Green Party is that when you're 18 years old, you should live your life according to the code that you choose for your life. And I think, frankly, the culture of fear, recrimination, whether on ethnic or gender or other sorts of lines, is something that the overall fascist system of white supremacy, benefits from. So I don't, think that it's a particularly important question.
Well, here's the issue that we have with that. Historically now, especially since Barack Obama, whenever we bring up Black issues, this is one of those Trojan horses that we've been talking about for a while, so this might be new here, but that's one of the Trojan horses. All of a sudden, we have all these other people who want to sit down at the table and say, hey, I'm the same as you. Why, I'm trans, so I'm misunderstood. There are folks won't let me do what I want to do. So when you talk about reparations and restorative justice, I'm the same as you. In California, they literally are talking about reparations for LGBT. So that's the reason why it has its prescience. So if we're going to invite other folk, we need to know where we stand on that.
That's actually not the original question, that you asked me. So I don't know if you need to compose.
No, you had mentioned about you were bringing about right. That you thought there was some white supremacist component to it, and I just showed you that this is totally separate and apart.
I think that perhaps where we would share a portion of the road in this conversation is that one of the many things that I reproach Obama for is that during the Obama and many, I mean, assassination of Gaddafi leading to like an actual African slave trade, bombing Yemeni kids with drones when he knew that a full third of the people that were killed in these strikes were civilians, women and children, and that these were strikes that actually, military experts often say had to have come from the White House, that they violated a bunch of other things. So amongst those things that I found frustrating in the Obama years was that Obama did nothing with respect to social justice policies for Black Americans, whether foundational Black Americans or Obama type Black Americans, right? Those that are the product of more recent recent migration. That Obama didn't do anything like Obama's achievements in bringing justice for our community were nothing, and the access that he facilitated for the LGBTQ community, dwarfed whatever he did for us by a wide margin. And as I've said in a number of other environments, really, there's no difference between Team Blue and Team Red when it comes to the basics of their political decision making. They are all owned by AIPAC, so they're all owned by the American Israeli Political Action Committee, and they're all owned by the war machine. They're all owned by the corporations that deal death throughout the globe. There is essentially a minor discrepancy between two different factions in that 1% corporate duopoly. On the one side, you have kind of Christian evangelical nationalists, white nationalists, and on the other side, you have LGBTQ identity groups that see themselves in opposition. But when it really comes down to it, the funding for both of those parties, it overlaps, between the 95%, something along that order, and that what you see is essentially a kind of performed, culture war between those two camps. And I find it, fruitless and unproductive, especially for Black folk that are liberation minded, to get caught up in the culture wars between those two groups.
Last question.
I feel like it's part of the hunting, as Malcolm said, the different kind of hunting practice between the fox and the wolf.
Last question. Do you perceive or believe in a Black and brown coalition?
I think that a black and brown coalition is something that is possible. It's something that we need to build. It is something that will take a lot of work. It is something that will take a laser-like focus on eliminating the anti-Blackness that exists within brown communities. And if you knew anything about my work before the vice presidential campaign, which I'm not sure that you did, the thing that I'm most widely known for in the Muslim community, the non-Black Muslim community, so especially speaking to South Asians and to Arab communities, is to uprooting the anti-Blackness that exists in those communities so that we can have more effective struggles against white supremacy. And I said in 2020, in the Floyd uprisings, I told that community that there is a day that is coming where you are going to want my people standing next to you. But if you're not standing next to my people in this, our moment of need, while we are being hunted down in the streets, then do not expect all our people to be standing next to you when your moment comes. And so we are definitely in that moment. And without, removing and uprooting the anti-Blackness that exists in Latin communities, that exists in South Asian communities, that exists in Arab communities, that exists in East Asian communities, then that Black and brown solidarity is compromised from the beginning. So without redress of the fundamental problem of reparations in the first instance and anti-Blackness as it is rooted in all of our modern societies and social institutions, then those kind of Black and brown solidarities are going to be compromised. But they are of the utmost importance. Right? Malcolm X believed in that kind of Black and brown solidarity because he said that of the Palestinian struggle, he said that this is a white Jewish population being empowered by white imperialists to dispossess brown Arabs and take them off of their land. Stokely Carmichael stood 10 toes down for the Palestinian people, as did Africans like Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, African Americans like James Baldwin, Angela Davis, Toni Morrison, and so forth. The Black radical tradition has always believed, and this is why the Panthers were in North Africa. This is why the Panthers were in non-Black communities. The Black radical tradition has always believed that our liberation had to have a multi-ethnic dimension that did not deny our own specific historical experience, but rather embraced it. And it also had to have an international dimension that was getting us free from imperialism and white supremacy.
Well, Dr. Ware, I was not aware of your work or anything before you entered the election. So I was not aware of you previously, but we've been getting more information. I think this has been very productive here. I think folks got a lot of your opinions on this, and I think you've clarified a lot of questions they had from our previous interview with Dr. Stein. Certainly, I want to give you the last word here, and if you would like to tell people about your website or anything you'd like to close with, certainly I would like to give that opportunity.
Yeah, at Butch Ware is my Instagram handle, and you can find me across social media at that same address. And I recommend that if you follow me on social media, Instagram is the best place to do it because I actually interact with that account. I'll answer DMs and give you information. I'll also just mention that this weekend here at UC Santa Barbara, I'm hosting a conference, the End of Empire and the Future of Freedom. And we will have, amongst other people, Mark Lamont Hill delivering a keynote, Saul Williams doing a poetic performance, Brianna Joy Gray doing a significant dialogue, and we'll have conscious hip hop artists performing as well. And just tap in that this freedom movement. What I would just say about this is that whatever differences we may have within our community, y'all are not going to get an opportunity to support someone so close to the White House who is a lifelong committed proponent of reparations and justice for the foundational Black community in this country. And if you have to take a little bit of Pan-Africanism and a little bit of anti-white supremacy coalition building with it, you should get down or lay down because it's going down. I'm bringing this fight, and I'm going to be fighting for reparations for Black folk and restorative justice for all of the people that have been harmed by white supremacy. And this is an opportunity to have somebody that believes in making America finally keep its promises to us in the White House. And if we don't get there on November 4th and you have me as your VP, you can bet for sure that you're going to find me at the top of that Green Party ticket, God willing, and the creek don't rise in 2028. And I've already expressed my intention to run for governor of California in 26 if we are not victorious in this pursuit of the White House. So happy to continue this conversation, and especially to continue this process of education of our communities as to how we can avoid having Black identity be weaponized in favor of white supremacist domination.
Well, I think it's been a great dialogue. I want to thank you very much for giving us an hour of your time, folks. Election day is next week, so be there or be nowhere. Thank you very much for joining us, Doctor. We'll look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Take care.
All right, everyone. So for those of you who wanted to ask here, Jason, will you talk to Dr. Stein? Will you talk to Dr. Ware? I have now spoken to both of them. I've asked them all the questions that you all would like to have asked. I've focused on the areas that you all would like to have focused on. As you all know, I have a tradition here when it comes to having guests on my program. I don't characterize their statements. You know I don't do that. And this will be no different. I don't do this with anyone. I just give them the opportunity to speak. And from there, you all make the decision. You heard everything fair and square. You've heard it loud and clear. Do with it what you will. I'm not here to characterize it one way or the other. That's your job. My job is to give you the opportunity to go ahead and sound off on it if you choose. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up the link here on Zoom so you all can go ahead and give me a call up. And you can let me know what you think of the discussion. For those of you who came in late, like I say, you may need to go catch up on that. All right, we're going to go ahead and pin that to the top of the Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and pin that to the top of the Zoom there. And you all can go ahead and click that link. Very glad to have you with us here as well. Shout out here to Bluey 2010. Thank you very much for your contribution here on Super Chat. You've had some choice comments, but thank you very much for going ahead and giving us a call for go ahead and weighing in on that as well. Ballet dancer, we've had some folks who've joined the membership here. FBA Queen, as always, she is constantly giving out memberships. Thank you very much, FBA Queen, the gift that keeps on giving. Certainly you should have that as well here. And to everybody else there, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time doing that because I know you all are going to want to call me up on this. you can go ahead and do that. I'm so chill 360. Thank you very much as well. But I want to give you all an opportunity to go ahead and weigh in also. So I think we got to the point here. I think we were really able to uncover some stones, and I don't think there's any ambiguity, which is my job, is to make sure there's no ambiguity. And I don't think that there is any. So now you all can weigh in and let us know what you think of what you've heard. Let me go ahead and jump over here on Zoom. By the way, for everyone on Zoom, please make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on, just so we make sure we don't have any trolling issues. So if you're on Zoom, please keep in mind, just make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on for me. I will not put you up on the big screen, but just make sure you have that done. All right, Damon, you are first up. Go ahead and unmute yourself for me, please.
Hey.
All right, what's on your mind, Damon?
A great interview as always, very informative. I like how you followed up with extra questions to get to the root of some of the matters. But for the Green Party, it's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Okay, and you say that why?
I want him to repeat back to us exactly what we want. Not exactly what he thinks we should have, but what we want.
That's an interesting perspective. Michelle Obama this week wagging her finger saying that we need to do things for so-called women, and she can't even define what that is. Very interesting. When they talk to other groups, they tell the other groups what they're going to do for them. When they talk to us, they tell us what we need to do for them. So I thought I had that thought when I was thinking about Michelle Obama. It seems like coming away from this interview, you had a similar perspective coming away from it. So interesting.
Sure did. But I thank you again for the insight and the interviews that you've been putting up. They're very, very, very informative.
Well, thank you very much. The other networks will not do this for you all. I'm just doing my part as the black media. And like I said, you get to speak to the candidate. You get to listen to the candidates. You get to have your questions actually addressed. You get to hear the answers. And from there, as always, do with it what you will. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Michael here on Zoom. I got a bunch of folks lined up on Zoom, and I'm going to get to y'all. Going to see about getting to you all here. Let me get Michael up on Zoom for me here. All right, where you at, Michael? There you go. All right, Michael, what's on your mind?
I just think that when people are running for office, they just can't stand 10 toes down with a black agenda. They always come with, I'm president for everybody. But if you're part of that Republican or Democratic machine, it's like you always said, you can't promise them anything. It's like you have to be compromised if you're a candidate for president, and you can't really stand with Black people. Now, for Jews, it's a given. They don't even have to voice their demands. Their demands are taken as a given. For us, it's like the brother said previously, it's like they tell us what we should have instead of carrying out our agenda. And so that's why I'm not voting, because I don't think we have any representation. And
well, here's my take on what you just said there. And I think that's very prescient. My take on it here is when we show up and we say things and they talk about, okay, everybody wants to build a big tent when we show up. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think there's a place for that. Being monolithic just makes you a small group of people. Don't expect to get very much done under the circumstances. Well, we're going to bring other people. Okay, that can be a tricky thing, balancing those plates, but okay, it's practical. But when you say, I want us to build a coalition with the people who are undermining you. What? Now, it's when we get there that the strategy is, hey, I want to bring in all these folks who are undermining you, and I want us to build our coalition there. That's where we're going to start having issues. And that's the thing I was raising to him was that's what these folks didn't come over here and get anti-black tendencies. They had the anti-black tendencies and came over here no matter where you bring them in from. And we're going to build a coalition, a bridge there. That's what we're going to. So we need to be building with the folks who are trying to undermine us with absolutely no strategy for stopping the undermining. How do you make that happen? It's like building a bridge. You got concrete, and then you've got somebody who keeps bringing dump trucks of water every morning and dumping it in your concrete. You'll never get the bridge built. You're going to have a whole lot of days worked. You'll never get the bridge built because he keeps undermining what you're doing. So before I can work with the dump truck guy, I got to get him to stop dumping water every morning. I got to get that done first. That's the part that kind of goes out the window, and it starts sounding like hopium. Well, don't worry, we talk to him and everything will be cool, or they don't really mean that. Of course they mean that. Of course they do. And just no real strategy for, okay, how do you stop that? And if we're not going to address it, where are we going if we're not going to address that? If you're going to try to build a coalition with folks undermining you, where are we going? So I think I would like to hear, more practical solutions to that kind of thing. But you make a good point there. I'll let you have the last word, Michael. Okay, I thought Michael was just listening intently. I think Michael has been abducted. Okay, I hear Michael. Speak, Michael.
I'm gone.
No, you're not gone.
Oh yeah. Oh, I had no. It's like you. My whole thing is this: we have an agenda. We want the politicians to voice our agenda. We don't want them to tell us what they want us to have. And Black politicians can't do that in the Republican and Democratic Party. And if they do that, they find themselves excluded from the Republican or Democrat, saying it'll never happen, it'll never work. So at this point, I just think that we need to concentrate on building ourselves up economically. I'm just really getting out of the voting thing.
Okay. Well, that's an option as well. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me see if I can get Audra up here. Audra is in many ways an architect for these interviews that we've had here, so I guess I should go ahead and give her a tip of the hat as well. Let me get Audra to go ahead and turn everything on for me here. Just waiting for that. There you go. All right, Audra. Well, your work is paid off, it looks like here. So we have gone ahead and spoken to everybody that you brought to us. I take it you had a chance to listen to tonight's program, or if you haven't, you can just let me know what's on your mind.
I did. I absolutely would not have missed this for the world. Jason, I'm calling to say thank you very much for having this interview. This was phenomenal. I enjoyed Professor Ware's answer this evening. I think he stood 10 toes down on business. I do understand that with respect to a lot of the international relations, things that are a big component of European American supremacy, global hegemony, and economic dominance, and our immigration problem that is suffocating our current communities. My community went from 23% Black in 1990 to 5.8% Black here today. So with respect to the Green Party, the Black Caucus, there's a lot that we're working on to educate ourselves and the public with respect to our direction to facilitate that Black liberation.
Well,
movement.
I was certainly hoping to find out how bringing illegals over here to the tune of 20 million benefits us specifically. Never got an answer to that. I tried several times, never got that addressed. And that's very important to me because from a practical strategic standpoint, you've got all these white men running their farms, running their illegal businesses and whatnot. They're bringing them over here. Okay, these two forces cannot be in alignment. You can't have a bunch of white supremacist males bringing these folks over here and it's good for them, but it's also simultaneously good for us. Those are conflicting tendencies. You can't square that circle. You can't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that, and I think, I hate to interrupt you. Is okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think with respect to the Green Party and its platform, what I understand is when we address the international relations portion of the fact that they've got a bunch of I'm sorry, I cuss a lot.
No, you're in fine company, Audrey. You don't have to censor yourself.
I appreciate it. So they're doing a lot of fuck shit down there, and the coups, the drug and weapons flows, all of that crap, that is absolutely 100% European American derived. fuck shit that they're doing specifically because it's what underlies their economic viability. Without slaves and along the pipeline, the American economy falls apart, right? The entirety of America was built on slaves, stolen land and stolen resources. Without stolen land, stolen resources, and slaves along the supply chain, the United States falls, right?
Yeah, but
So they're importing slaves.
issue is
It
they
doesn't.
have
It impacts us
well,
negatively.
yeah, but the issue
It
is that
negatively
they have
impacts.
they have a place to go for one reason. We have not been less oppressed, less assaulted, less enslaved. We've been more oppressed, more assaulted, more enslaved than anyone. Our response was categorically, empirically, exponentially different. We didn't look for a place to run to. We dug in our heels and said, we standing right here. And because of our culture of resistance, that created a place where all these other folks are like, oh, it's safe for us to go, as opposed to them doing where they're at what we did. So my thing is, if you are in Venezuela, if you are in Brazil, if you are in Argentina, if you are in Costa Rica, if you're in anywhere, you've been assaulted, okay, that's your land. Do there what we did here, because if you're coming here, I cannot believe I can't delude myself into thinking that you're going to fight harder next to me than you did in the place you were born that you ran from. That's just counter psychological.
I feel you on that one, Jason. And I'll just let you know that Professor Ware and I part ways on that note, because with respect to Blanquamiento and all the things that Europeans did in Central and South America to eradicate their formerly enslaved population and that indigenous population, I believe a lot of the people that are at our border are descendants of colonizers. So from that to that end, and with the work, like the Green Party's large. And it's not just Professor Ware that is steering,
I gotta clarify on that point there too, though, Audra, because that's the deceptive thing, which is the point I was trying to make to Dr. Ware, and we had a little bit of an obstacle there assimilating that. I mentioned Sammy Sosa, and what I'm saying is that we would be deceiving ourselves if we tell ourselves that those of, quote, European ancestry, is very easy to identify that. What I'm saying is that there are the white supremacists. You don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. And it is in the culture. They do not identify as black. They identify as black Spanish. Well, I'm just the darker skinned Spanish. And if we are not honest with ourselves about who that is we're speaking to, and we give ourselves based on our experience with each other that, oh, they're, quote, black like us, you're already off to a corrupted bad start that can't do anything but fail, because you're not being honest with how that person sees themselves. You're trying to project your desires onto them instead of just taking them at their word. Hey, he doesn't see himself as black. And you're trying to inculcate him into our culture when he doesn't see himself as a member of that. Now, you can talk about your desires and how advantageous that would be. And hearkening to Huey Newton and Malcolm X and everything, we had a different dynamic then. We had a different dynamic. And I would sit up here and say to everyone, yeah, we can use those names, but at the end of the day, how did that turn out? What do we have to show from Malcolm X and Fred Hampton and Huey Newton and the rest of them building their minority coalitions? We got Ed Blum going to the Supreme Court with an endless number of Asians behind him targeting just us. That's what we got for it. So if you will not face a problem, you can't fix it. I say that to say, okay, we can't have a clear understanding with them until we have a clear understanding of them. Not projecting what we wish. So they get a nice. I give a respect for giving it the old college try. We're here to give the final verdict. Yeah, that coalition ain't working. It never worked. We have nothing to show for it except being undermined. That's what we have to show for it. So we need to do something different.
That's correct. And that's what I'm trying to do with respect to the Green Party. And I'll just bring it back to last time when Dr. Stein was here. For me, turning the Green Party black is my strategy. So joining your Green Party at the local level, building out your platform plank for reparations, and sitting with the various levels of the organization to really meet out what's in, or what really is the issues with respect to immigration, with respect to our community. So what we're proposing is an American Freedmen Caucus that will sit on both the American Freedmen and the Bloc Caucus. We will be writing platform and policies that will be pushed through all of the general assemblies in various parts of the Green Party, so it will be adopted, and we will run our candidates on a slate across the nation on the platform that we built out together. And that is something that the Green Party has always said they are absolutely 100% open to.
Well, look,
But
I don't
just-
tell people how to vote. You can vote however I tell people,
absolutely.
vote however you wish to. The only wasted vote is a vote you do not believe in. By the way, if you want to vote for Kamala Harris, knock yourself out. You want to vote for Trump, go ahead. I don't edge people or urge them in one way or the other, except I would suggest you vote Black empowerment, because you're going to live with that no matter who's there. But I don't take people one direction or another. So if you want to vote Green Party, if what you heard moves you in that direction or encourages you, then by all means go to that. But just make sure, my job is to make sure that you can make your decision with your eyes wide open and you've got a very clear understanding of what it is you're supporting. And then from there, it's election day. Do what you do. I'll let you have the last word, Audra.
Hey, thank you, Jason. Thank you. I appreciate this interview. Everybody should go to jillstein2024.com. Hit up that platform, dive into that reparations plank. If you click, there's an embed in there for the Black Climate Mandate. It lays out that land portion of the reparations that will be giving us land back. And I'm at Auntie_Audra on Twitter. Hit me up. I like to talk.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. Let me go ahead and see here. I got to do a little bit of housekeeping on that as well. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Joseph up here. Joseph. Let me go ahead and get Joseph on Zoom. There you are, Joseph. All right. What's on your mind, brother?
Brother Jason Black, man, let me tell you, the biggest takeaway from this interview, man, is his disrespect, you know what I'm saying, for you during that conversation. It was really annoying the hell out of me, you know what I'm saying, how he was consistently trying to talk down to you and give us a history lesson as if you didn't know anything about our FBA lineage and what we were talking about and what we were, you know what I'm saying, what our grievances are, and then try to frame the question like I'm going to reject the question that you were asking him. And like, you running for office here, like, what do you expect for you? What was he expecting for you to say?
Well,
Like,
look, I mean, you all know how it is. I have no ego to inflate or offend. I do have sensibilities that can be offended, but I have no ego to inflate or offend. My job is to host the program as pragmatically and objectively in you all's interest as I can. So I have no ego in that regard. I will say this. If I were somebody's political consultant, I would certainly let them know you certainly don't want to come off as emotional. You don't want to come off as, intemperate. You don't want to do that because other folk, you really want to get to your point as quickly as you can. You want to be as concise as you can be. The more running around and dancing around you do, the more it just seems like at best you look uncertain and at worst you look deceptive. So that's the reason why when somebody asks you a yes or no question, Kamala Harris is getting spanked right now because you ask Trump a question, he can't wait to put a blunt answer in your face. You ask her a question and she can't wait to run. So it doesn't matter how articulate she may be on a legal docket. She kills herself when you ask her a simple question because you ain't got 30 minutes to hear a thesis. Dude, give me the cliff notes. Is it a yay or a nay? So if I were to give advice, that would be it. The other thing is, look, in a lot of cases here, what happens is they speak to, quote, friendly audiences. They're trying to gather people who already are thinking what they're thinking, and that's why the pie never gets any bigger. And they use that tactic. So it's like, look, dude, you're not gonna soft sell this to us. You might as well go ahead and just lay it on down. Because you're not going to rationalize and explain to us and, articulate it in some elevated, esoteric manner. And then, we'll see what we were wrong at. No, we understand what you're saying. We understand it perfectly. all you're really doing is coming across, I think, in a way in which you might not think you are. So if I were consulting for someone, I'd tell them that. But brother, I thank you very much for being, being observant of that. It's no issue for me. I don't have a problem with it. My job is to go to work for you all. And I think that what you're saying is that you have a clear understanding of where this candidate stands on these issues that matter to you. So what did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, like when he was talking about the immigration aspect of it, the whole black and brown thing, the points that you was raising about, like how does immigration benefit, saying foundational black Americans, his answers were, saying just he was dodging everything. I'm just like he's not giving concise answers. And then when you was actually holding him accountable to those answers, that's when the sassiness came out. And you can clearly tell, saying he was triggered, saying in that way. Everyone knows that the world is, saying anti-black for the most part, and a lot of these black countries are anti-FBA. So we really don't have any allies in this. And he kept on quoting Malcolm X, which was annoying me because I love Malcolm X. But I'm just like, you're not what Malcolm X stand for. It was like, stop, spewing his quotes. You're the fox that he's talking about. So like, these are the things that I was just listening to him. I'm just like, I was in the comment section. My name was Pariah in there, and I was going in. I ain't never comment so much in my life. So, I was like, man, I really wasn't feeling him at all. And I was like, this is your representation. You're not even coming across presidential. And, you are Jill Stein's running mate, which says a lot about her as well, because she's choosing someone like you to represent her. That's a bad look.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to really clarify the reparations part for us, which, I mean, certainly he was more committal about the lineage part of it. But it's my job not to have us go for trick bag language or smoke and mirrors language. So, yes, he's saying lineage. Yeah, I heard that. But then I'm like, by the way, I also understand that he keeps coupling it with something else. And I'm like, okay, well, to me, this just sounds like a roundabout way of bringing in all that other stuff we were talking about. Well, we need to understand it's bigger than lineage. That's what you're saying. We need to understand this. Well, I mean, yeah, lineage is part of it, but is this also this bigger than that? And I'm just like, I just want to make sure that, okay, dude, you're not standing on it until you just stand on that part of it. Oh, that's not what I said. Yeah, that is what you said. So do yourself a favor. If that's what it is, stand on that so that people have a clear understanding, and then you can move on to something else. But don't sit up here and say that and then say that's not what I said. That just comes across as deceptive. Just say, yeah, reparations based on your lineage, but I also think that it's bigger than that. Okay, we can have that conversation also, but don't tell us we didn't hear what we just heard.
Right.
Because that's more Obama and Kamala Harris. Don't tell us we didn't hear what we just heard.
Exactly. And then the fact that he didn't even know his own Jill Stein's stance on abortion. And then when you have to repeat it back to him, it's like, no, like these are the limitations. She actually had limitations to, the abortion rights, and he just basically didn't have any. And then when you repeat it back what she actually said, he was flustered. You can
I don't know. Maybe somebody can teach me. How does a credible Muslim support abortion?
Man, trust me, you was hitting him, and he was trying to dodge. I'm like, all right.
I'm just saying, how does a credible Muslim say that the choice between killing a baby is between a woman and a doctor, not between a woman and God? I'm just, like I say, maybe my religions are all just old. He's talking about Malcolm, by the way. Malcolm would never have said that.
No.
Malcolm would never in a million years say that. So I'm just like, okay, I guess these are the new Muslims out here. I guess that's what it is, because I ain't never met a devout Muslim. Show me the abortion clinics in Iran. Show me the abortion clinics in Saudi Arabia. Show me the abortion clinics in Dubai and Oman. Show me the abortion clinics in those places. Show me where Planned Parenthood is posted up, taking care of the needs of the Muslim women over there. So like I say, it's just, and I did want to get into that because, like I say, sometimes he can go into withering detail with his responses. And I was trying to adhere to, okay, I got him for an hour. So I was trying to let him speak and stuff like that. And at the same time, I didn't want to make it where it's, okay, here we go off. I I didn't want to feel a tangent if I could avoid it. And sometimes that was occurring, which, can happen with folks giving answers. I was trying to reel him back in because I'm like, hey, dude, you got an hour. And, you got an economy of time is important. I'm trying to be respectful right now, brother. The economy of time. Well, I mean, I did. I certainly, nobody can say I didn't let him talk. I let the man go on and on. I got what, 4 or 5 questions in there. So it's like, okay, but yeah, dude, I mean, I guess it's just a different matter here. I'll just say this, and I was referencing this before. I'm trying to be diplomatic, brother. You hurt me here because I'm trying to be diplomatic, Joseph.
Yeah, I did.
You're making it hard on me. But I don't know how much experience these folks have talking and answering questions. If the only people you speak to are folks who already believe what you believe or think what you think, and you're speaking to the converted, then when something like this happens, you end up giving inefficient responses.
Yeah, man. Well, excellent broadcast, man. Like, again, I'll be replaying this back for my friends to hear, man. So keep up the good work, man. Be one all day.
Black First, brother, thank you very much. It was called night. Like I say, definitely keep that in mind. I'd let people talk. I'd let them be heard and things, but please just understand, people hear you. People can hear you. They hear what you're saying. That means something. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Doug up here on Zoom. Is this Doug Imhoff? If this is Kamala Harris's Doug, I will be a little surprised about that. Doug, I'm going to give you 5 seconds here. If Doug got up and walked away from the phone, he's going to be in trouble. Wake up, Dougie. There you go.
Hey.
All right,
Hey,
Doug,
Jason,
what's on your mind, brother?
All right, how you doing, man?
All right, Doug.
Hey, listen, I listened to the good part of the show. I actually like the guy. I thought he was informative. I thought you was hard on him like you had to be. You didn't give him no room. You didn't let him get away with nothing. You kept hitting him where it counted. I thought that he made his fundamental mistake was that he was thinking coalition. I thought you hammered him on that good because you can't have a coalition without a team. And and you was trying to hit him with what about the team? When he mistook when you were talking about community, he didn't understand. You were saying, what are you gonna do? What about the team? He didn't get that. But I like that he was a really smart guy, but I thought that his smartness worked against him in this particular case, because that's what smart people do. They outsmart themselves. And he thought that he could talk his way around it. And when you hit him with the hard questions, he wasn't prepared. And maybe I don't think you should have your vodka and grapefruit juice while you're having your hour of time. That's what I think. Because I've seen him on other shows, Jason, and he's always other things, and they never give him that much time. And you gave him more time than anybody.
I gave him an extreme amount of time there and whatnot. And like I say, I mean, it's up to them to make the best use of it. Now, Doug, without me going into tremendous detail, we both know your background. We know the history there. So you got an insight into this kind of stuff. And I'm just saying, whether it's the Muslim thing or some of this other stuff there, it's like folks need to talk to some different people. If you're going to run a national campaign, you need to talk to some different people and find out. It's like, hey, we're not going to subscribe to somebody's new definition of all these things. Everybody's not out here just clueless and not understanding. And if you walk out here and you're not, you don't realize how far ahead the audience is, you may not serve yourself very well, bro. You might not serve yourself very well.
You might want to be quiet about that, because that is one of the best kept secrets. Is that people are a lot smarter than some of these knuckleheads think, particularly the people who are running the duopoly that he was talking about. People a lot smarter.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, and Michael touched on this and whatnot, and folks are looking to bring us their agenda instead of asking us what's ours.
There you go.
And instead of asking us what is our agenda and how best you're going to deliver our agenda, instead they're like, okay, I heard the PCO agenda. Now let me tell you what your agenda needs to be. And that's going to be that's what they always do with us. They always do that with us. And they want to put some new hip, phraseology on it and whatnot. It's we're not desperate for representation. We're not so desperate that yet again somebody can say 20% of what we said and then tell, okay, well, here's where the other 80% are going to go. No, if you're going to represent me, your job is to represent my agenda, not for me to figure out how to get with yours. Donald Trump has never held a rally telling the people who showed up what the agenda should be. They're telling him, hey, you be the best representative for us. And here's where we get into trouble. I think folks are so used to us being desperate for representation that that's the way they come approaching us. Now they're getting a radically different response. And I don't think that, I have a sneaking suspicion, and I could be wrong, but I have a sneaking suspicion that hanging out with Mark Lamont Hill is not going to correct that misconception very much. I could be wrong. Mark might set him straight, but I have a feeling it's not going to correct it.
No, you're absolutely right. The first thing you have to do is decide who's the client and who's the customer, what's the value proposition, and what am I getting in return? You can't be in capitalism without knowing what the value proposition is or what's the rate of return. You'll never raise any money. You'll never be in business because nobody's going to give you any money if you don't know those things. And here these guys are politicians and coming to us and saying, hey, look what I'm going to do for you. No, here's what I want. Let me know when it's ready.
No, Doug, I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head right there, bro. You live in the belly of the beast. You was born and raised in it, and you live in the belly of the beast now. If I ask you, what is the benefit that we receive from bringing those people over here, you got to be ready to answer that.
Correct.
You got to be ready to answer that question. I asked it straight. You got to be ready to answer that straight. Just, okay, and what you said about what's the value proposition? Okay, this shouldn't be something I got to strain my brain to think about. You should be able to very clearly explain to me, hey, here's the benefits you getting left, right, and center. It shouldn't be something we got to run around the world about. So when I ask you that, dude, that we need to get a straightforward answer. Brother, if we were seeing it, you'd be seeing it every day.
He shouldn't have to ask you, because if you're going in to ask somebody to give you money for your private venture, you're going to walk in the door telling them what you're going to be doing for them and why this is a value, why it's important, and why it makes sense to put money in it. He didn't do that. He didn't say, here's what happens when you vote for me, I'm going to do this. Because when you start talking about all them other people, you ain't addressing what our needs are. We already know who's on the bottom. It's us. We already know those other people, like you told them, they got their own country. Even if their country is fucked up, that's their country. And if it was us, we go in there and make sure that the shit is that we get what we need.
Bruh, I mean, okay, let me tell you about messed up countries, bro. Look here, dude. You know the get down. I don't give a damn if it's the Bronx. Niggas ain't running. In Brooklyn, right. Niggas ain't running. Chicago, niggas ain't running.
Well, maybe the Brooklyn niggas. You know,
they kind of spotty sometimes. But you know, like I say, we ain't running like that. So don't tell me about what happened where you was at. Talk about Move. They dropping bombs on folk, dude. Come on, we've been through that. The reason why it's better now is because we had a different response to it. So don't tell me what you've been going through. We've been through it all the way over here. Our response was different. We done had all kinds of stuff happening, and we stood on it. That's why you got a place to come look at and say, ooh, let me get over there. And I'm like, okay, I don't see how I align with you because our cultural values is different. I ain't built to run, and you already got your track shoes on.
That's right. Well, it's a team thing, man. You know, we have a great opportunity through programs like, broadcasts like yours, I stand corrected, like yours, where people can change ideas, see who's really zooming who and who's not, no pun intended, and who's not, and you get a chance to see what's going on so you could shop for democracy. Because your vote is up to you. You know, nobody need to know who you're voting for. You should shop. I like your attitude. Shop for democracy. Go in there and vote your interest, man. And don't let nobody move you off your spot, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's my position on it. Thank you very much for getting this call tonight. I always like talking to Doug. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. And, you know, if you really want to run in politics and stuff like that, whether you like them or not, the politicians who've done the best are the ones who can be the straight shooter. Once you folks are more savvy today, when they see you running around from an answer, it undermines their confidence. So my suggestion to anybody would be, hey, just make sure you keep it short, keep it simple, keep it concise, and stick to the point on that. I think that's what serves you best. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Jessica up here on Zoom. Working on getting Jessica here. I'll give Jessica about 5 seconds. If Jessica doesn't show up, we'll have to grab somebody else here. So let me go ahead and see if I can get Jessica on Zoom. There you go. All right, Jessica, waiting for her to get that taken. She's
Hi.
She looked like she got
I'm here. This is Angelica Lena calling from Nashville, Tennessee.
Looked like she got her hair did too. Why are you looking like Sexy Red?
I didn't get my hair done. This is a head headscarf.
Okay, I thought it was sexy red for a moment. All right, what's on your mind?
No, this is the headscarf. Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you for the interview. Yeah, that guy, Dr. Butch Ware, yeah, it was the attitude and the sassiness for me. And it's like, this guy, you think that you can be VP or even like school secretary with an attitude like that? It's like he couldn't answer basic questions. And one thing that I'll say too is, and I made a couple of notes. And so that thing when he was talking about how I'm not just going to be the president of just Black people. It's like, where have we heard that before?
Yeah, thank
Where have we
you.
heard
Thank you
that?
very. First of all, he'll just say he didn't say that. That was the other thing right there. Brother, do you realize this whole thing is recorded? You need to stop saying that, because every time I said that, you do realize you just said those words. But yeah, I like I say, I didn't want to even chase that one because we were already having, he was already being a little touchy, and I'm like, okay, well, let me just ease up there. But yeah, I heard that too, and I'm like, dude, do you hear yourself?
Exactly. It was like, okay, he said that. And then the one at the end, the closing argument, closing statement at the end when he said, I'm the only chance, and I'm rewording it a little bit, but you know what I mean. I'm the only chance of y'all in reparations. When he said that part, and it was like the fear mongering. I was getting fear mongering from that. And where have we gotten that from?
Yeah, I can think of another doctor who speaks in such grandiose terms as well, and I'll leave that at that. If you know, you know. Let me just leave it there so we don't get sidetracked. But what I will say is, yeah, we're gonna get it whether he's here or not. Let me just address that real quick. Thanks for your contribution. We're gonna get it whether you're here or not. We're going to get it whether you get abducted by aliens tomorrow or not. We're going to get it no matter what. So that much we don't even worry about. We really, really don't. I just don't think, but for the whole reason right there, that's not a sound bite you really want getting circulated. You really don't want it sounding like that because, like I said, we're not really desperate for representation and we're not looking for a savior. We're not. And I think a lot of folks, they get on stage with some of these other people, and it really gives them a different perspective of themselves that may not be in line with what the masses see or how the masses feel about it.
Exactly. And one thing I'll say too, when he said, well, these people, they have to flee and they have to come over here. And I kept thinking, how come they can't just fight back instead of flee like we did, like FBA Freedmen did? It's like everybody has to flee to come here to the country that we built and that we fought for. And when he was saying, I forgot the word he was using. I don't remember hearing him say white supremacist too much, but I forgot the word that he used, but he was talking about all of the tyranny that goes on in these other countries. And, the United States does all these other countries. There's been no other group of people that the United States has inflicted a supremacist system on, or all the harm he's talking about. There's not been another group of people that have been harmed more than we have, and certainly not for as long. We've been bombed, things set on fire, our water supplies poisoned.
Yeah, but here's the issue though with that. Here's the problem with it. It doesn't matter. And here's the reason why, because of the point I kept making to him, which I always make to y'all. These folk ain't holding no grudge about it. They're not holding a grudge over it. They're coming over here voting for Trump. They're coming across the border voting for Trump. They're getting out from Cuba, coming out the water, voting for DeSantis. So very clearly, they're not holding a grudge about it. You want us to be more outraged for them than they are for themselves? Okay, now we're just projecting. I'm looking at what they're doing. I'm not going to be more outraged by it than them. If they really so upset about what happened, where they came from, their response would be looking a lot like ours. They're going in the opposite direction. Let's just stop fooling ourselves. Let's stop playing with ourselves. How do you build a coalition with a coalition of the aggrieved with somebody who doesn't see themselves as aggrieved? Those are the first folk telling
Right.
you and me we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we need to pull, y'all need to quit complaining so much. So all we're doing is assisting other people who, once they get solid, they start undermining us. Hell, in many cases, they're undermining us before they even get solid. So I'm just saying, okay, let's just not play about that. Let's just not play about that part of it. And ultimately, by the way, one last thing, and what do I get for supporting his interests? This person I don't know, he wasn't born here, he snuck into the country against the laws. What do I get for giving him a pass? What do I get out of it? How does that help me? Because I see how it hurts me. You should be able to instantaneously tell me how I benefit. That's how you stop the conversation, and that's how you stop the resistance. Just answer my question. What do I get from that? Well, philosophically speaking, forget that. I'm talking about financially and socially. What do I get? And you can't answer that? Okay, hey, you're the one doing that, man. You're the one doing that. So like I say, look, if for some folks there, they still talking about they want to vote Green Party. Fine, great, wonderful. If that's the decision you want to walk away from it it's just understand what you're getting. Just understand what you're getting. And if you want that, well, then you're going to get a great big, huge 5-gallon heaping of it. I'll let you have the last word.
Exactly. So my last 2 points were that, and he struggled because there is no benefit. He struggled. That's why, because he knows there's no benefit. And he was talking about study after study, because he's his PhD. I don't have a PhD. But study after study, what he was talking about, study after study shows that legal and illegal immigration harms foundational Black American freedmen more than anything. Study after study has shown that. And we've had our own people talk about that. Coretta Scott King talked about that. Barbara Jordan talked about that. So there's been studies on that already. So
I can name the places where the illegal showing up have undermined us. Y'all already know that: Chicago, Nickerson Gardens, Dallas, Jacksonville. I can go down the list of it. He couldn't name one place where that's a benefit to us. And I'm like, dude, folks, come on now. If you have a point, it's not going to be that hard to make. If you actually got the goods, it won't be that hard to make. It really won't. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight, sister. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Nicholas up here on Zoom. And like I say, I'm not here to advise people in that regard. Hey, their job is to make their case for themselves. My job is to make sure that I just ask the right questions and you all have a clear understanding of where they stand. All right, Nicholas, we got you here on Zoom. What's on your mind, brother?
I'm good. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I actually early voted, and I actually voted for the Green Party. And after this interview, there are things I didn't like, but I think all in all, I think looking at Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, they had the best platform. I do think there are certain times that you did kind of antagonize him, but to your credit, he should have kept more of his level head. And the last thing I would say is that I agree with like most of their policies. So, I think he's a smart brother. I think he answered the questions for the most part pretty good. And yeah, I agree with most of the policies.
Okay. Other than reparations, what policy did you hear tonight that you agree with?
I would say mostly reparations. I would say that was the
Okay, let me try this one more time. Other than reparations, what policy did you hear tonight that you agreed with?
I would say I'm conflicted with immigration just because the truth is that
let me try this a third time. Other than reparations, what did you agree with? Because now you just told me what you didn't agree with. So I'm like, this is going bad and good and going downhill worse. So, brother, was there anything other than that? And by the way, I don't think that's correct either. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. I don't think you're correct on that first one either, but we'll find out. Other than reparations, what policy did you hear tonight that you also agree with?
Abortion.
So you agree with his stance on abortion?
Yes, sir.
And what did you perceive as his stance on abortion?
That it's pro-choice. It's again, it's up to the woman to choose whether she wants to have the baby, and I'm pro-choice.
80 million Black babies have been aborted since 1975. Do you realize what our population would be today if that had not happened?
Yeah, but ultimately that was their choice.
Okay,
again,
let me try one more time. 80 million Black babies have been aborted since 1975. Can you imagine what our population would be today had that not occurred?
It would be much bigger. That is correct.
How would that not be how is that a positive for Latinos and a positive for Asians and a positive for Jewish people, but is not a positive for us?
Again, so we should offer these women alternative choices, not just
right,
abortion.
brother. I get that. Okay, boy, but you must be related to Butch. Let me try this again, brother. How, now that you've acknowledged the number, how would that have not been a benefit to us for those 80 million not to have been aborted?
Well, it could have potentially been a benefit. Yes, I agree with you.
Potentially. How would it not be?
Well, let's say those children took an alternative pathway that led to like more like crime and death and stuff like that. That was a potential option too. So
okay, are you saying that there would be 80 million criminals? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that could have been a potential option, or it could have been, some upstanding citizens. I'm not too sure, but I do agree that
the numbers would just be there would just be more of us running along the same lines. That's all that there would be. And the overwhelming majority, that's math. The overwhelming majority would be exactly like what we see today. There would just be more of us, and we would have a whole lot more political clout, social clout, media clout. We have a whole bunch of geniuses that we've aborted. That's not a benefit. I don't think there's a benefit you can find for snuffing them out. We won't even get into the biological argument because there's no substantiation or justification there. But what I will say is for everybody else, that's sold as a positive. Let them have as many numbers as they want. But for us, we get into discussions about why it's okay for 80 million to be snapped out of existence. Why is it we're the only place where that conversation is happening?
And again, that goes back to choices. I feel like a lot of those females should be given alternative options, like adoption. Like, do you have someone in your family that could help, or better yet, maybe a community type of organization that could help raise the children. So again, I feel like abortion is definitely one option, but there are other options.
If we had aborted 80 million Jewish children, would anybody be saying if those 80 million had been born, they'd probably be a bunch of criminals? We don't know how bad it would be.
Depending on the circumstances, they could say that.
Okay, and that's a novel approach. About reparations, by the way. You said that you agree with their stance on reparations.
Absolutely.
Okay. Also, in what regard?
In regard that he said it was for Black Americans who were descendants of chattel slavery in this country, and I definitely agree with that. I feel like Black Americans descended to chattel slavery to this country are entitled to reparations from the American government.
Correct, but when I probed further, it wasn't limited there.
I think when he said that, he was talking about his personal views.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But that is the platform he's promoting.
No, if you go to their website, they make it very clear that it's for foundational Black Americans, people who are of the soil of the country. Yes,
sir. But that wasn't all he said. The whole reason why I wanted to remove it from the constitutional part of the argument was he already made the clarification that his position is that, well, yes, those are the lineage, we must get reparations, absolutely. But there's reparations and then there's restorative justice. Now, that was what he said, sir. And that was why I went to a deep dive into him and said, okay, let me get away from that constitutional camouflage there. Let's just go ahead and ask them personally, because of course, personally is where the policy will come from. But my other thing is they're not going to support something that they don't personally believe in.
That's not necessarily true. LBJ didn't really care for Black people, but he still supported civil rights. So it's about, when the people get elected, just staying on their bumper and saying, hey, you said that you were going to support reparations for Black Americans. So you need to stand on business as far as that policy.
Right. But here's the other thing is that in their position, if they were in the position of power, they wouldn't have to promote that other thing. They wouldn't have to do that. That'll be brought to them by others. So the others will come in and say, but what about trans? What about illegal aliens? What about LGBT? What about Afghans? They'll bring that. And based on what you heard tonight, you think he's going to say no?
Absolutely, will say no. He already said that he supports reparations for Black Americans.
Okay, and so the part that he said about restorative justice, including those other people, you're saying that, but if you're in a policy position, he said they should get restorative justice, but you don't think he'd actually follow through with it?
No, again, that's his personal decision, but he made it clear what his policy position. And again, if you go to the Green Party's website, that's what they make it very clear is how they support reparations, and that's the policy of the Green Party.
Okay, well, sir, we talked to him tonight, and it was recorded, and you can play it back, and that's why I keep saying this, sir. Maybe you missed it. No, sir, he made that clear that primarily when it comes to reparations, yeah, that's where his stance is, but he also sees restorative justice for those affected by racism and colonialism and so on and so forth. Also, his stance on the border is also extracted from that position as well. He said it that we owe the Asians. Well, take a look at what happened in Vietnam and take a look at what happened in Southern Asia. We owe them access to America based on that. Well, that's the extraction of that restorative justice. So no, sir, it didn't just stop there, sir. And that's the policy. That's not personal opinion. That's the policy, sir.
Okay, well, that's a separate policy opposed to reparations.
Okay, but do you think that reparations and that can coexist?
As two separate policies?
But that other policy undermines reparations.
Not necessarily, depending how it's designed or how, they implement it.
So leaving your borders open to a bunch of non-black folk, non-lineage people who are already hostile, if they're already undermining us now, you don't think continuing that policy would undermine us even worse?
Personally, for Black Americans, I can see how it can, but my thing is this: America has destroyed those people's countries, so what are they supposed to do?
Okay, sir, what they're supposed to do is stand and fight like we did over here.
Fight and die? We're talking about napalm.
We fought and died over here.
Again,
we fought and died over here. Well, you didn't, but we fought and died over here.
Absolutely. And again, Black Americans are still the poorest people in this country, so we're still victims of white supremacy.
Okay, but guess what? They running to be over here with the poorest people in this country. We're not running to be over there with them.
Because the way capitalism works is you exploit the labor, the resource of other countries.
Would you like to know how courage and character work?
Yeah, but Black Americans are still the poorest people in the country. They're still been assassinated. Police still get killed. So it's like
yet we're not running.
But we keep on dying. Like what I'm saying is that we're not making as much progress as far as
we must have made a hell of a lot of progress, because them folks are fighting and dying to come over here. We're not doing the same. So obviously we've done pretty good comparatively speaking. Maybe they should follow our example.
If they follow their example, they will end up like the Palestinians and die by the hundreds of thousands.
First of all, that's not an accurate comparison there either.
That's absolutely an accurate comparison.
No, the Palestinians have a lot more issues than that going on. They have a lot more. First of all, they've got an issue there of being grossly mismanaged. That is a huge amount of mismanagement going on over there. And that's a whole different subject because that's foreign affairs. But the bottom line is they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So even with your argument of, the same thing would happen to Palestinians, the Palestinians are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not running. They're not fleeing. They standing for what's theirs. And with an attitude like that, they're more likely to get it than not. I can respect that. Sir, please tell me who's coming over here who's not undermining us already. Because you're saying, that won't undermine us. Isn't it undermining us already?
And when you say undermining us already, you're talking about illegal immigration?
The illegal aliens coming over here. Tell me who's coming over here that's not undermining us now.
I don't think much of them are coming over there not to undermine Black people, to be honest.
Tell me the places where you have a large number of your illegals that are not undermining us. Go.
Yeah, I can't think of them, to be honest with you.
Okay, now isn't this a moment for you to have an epiphany then?
I mean,
sir, you were just asked to name the place, and I just asked you, and now you just said I can't name it. Adulthood is when you realize that you've reached the end of something. You don't keep arguing for it based on emotion. You say,
I'm not arguing based on emotion.
I need to pause and consider now and stop being emotionally attached to this position I've taken. Sir, I just asked you a fact, just like I asked him. Just name the place. You want to shut me down? Just name the place where we balling and doing great with all these illegals around us. East LA, San Diego, Stockton, Sacramento, Dallas, Houston, Galveston. Name one place where it's not undermining us. Just one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's undermining. So I think the
you said you don't think it's undermining us.
No, I think it is undermining. Let me correct myself. I do think it ultimately
Then
undermines
why
Black
would
Americans.
then why would we
But
double down on it?
So I think we should change foreign policy to not want to exploit these people's country so they take advantage of their own resources and be able to build up their own country so they can go back there.
Okay, our policy should certainly be the United States government should not be going around, being interventionist and capitalizing on folks' things and destabilizing countries. Absolutely. By the way, you have a whole bunch of illegals. That's why I brought up the point about China. You can't make the Mexico argument for the folks who are coming over here from China illegally. You got them out there in Acadia in California. They're all Seattle, Washington, New York City. So you can't make the Mexico south of the border argument for that. China is the world's biggest economy right now, although sometimes it trades place with the United States in off years. But if they keep messing with real estate, they're going to go back where they were, which is probably going to happen anyway. But by the way, you can't explain that one. Anybody who's been to Vietnam in the last 15 years understands that's not napalm and landmines over there anymore, folks. It's time to update your files. The Philippines, we get tsunami of nursing students who come over here from the Philippines with their credentials before they get started. I can go down the list. So this idea that these are desperately poor third world countries that are still dodging bullets and it's like the scene from Apocalypse Now every morning, that's just fantasy. And these are not the south of the Mexican border people. We're extending this to them. What was done to China to allow 1 million illegals? I'm sorry, was it 250,000 or 500,000 illegals from China to come over here? What was done to them to justify that?
No, I agree with you on that point. I feel like if you come from like a first world country like China, then you have no business legally immigrating to a country.
Okay, but if you let anybody in illegally, why is that not an incentive for everybody to come illegally then?
Okay, that's a fair point.
So if you let one in, that's how you end up with 20 million. With you saying, well, we'll be flexible, eventually somebody stretches it to proportions you never imagined or at least weren't thinking about. Brother, let me find out one question. What city you live in?
I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, Lord, there we go.
What is that supposed to mean?
There we go. Brother, where you people from?
I'm from Jamaica.
There you go.
What's wrong with being from Jamaica?
Sir, I'm just saying your perspective on it is, by the way, it was a come up. I'm just saying, let's call it what it is. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck.
My mother was very poor before she came to America. Jamaica.
Okay, and do you see the problem with that, sir?
I mean, she was going to be poor in Jamaica. What is she supposed to do? She lived in a shanty town.
Okay, there's that attitude right there. Marcus Garvey, that's the reason Marcus Garvey couldn't get nothing popping in Jamaica and had to come over here and ball with us, because that attitude has always been the problem. Isn't it very interesting? The Chinese don't have any problem making money in Jamaica. The white folk with Norwegian Carnival cruise lines, Norwegian cruise lines, they don't have any problem making money in Jamaica.
Yeah,
isn't that very interesting?
Capital. They come with capital.
Okay, sir, they don't have to have capital there. In Iran, y'all need to stop being ignorant of your history. Mohammed Mossadegh in Iran. Iran's got a thriving oil industry today. How is that? Because when the white folk came over there with their Arab Persian oil company, Mohammed Mossadegh said, y'all been cheating us out of our money. We are nationalizing the oil industry, including all those oil wells y'all built. He went to the UN and made that case, and guess what? Iran has it to this day. And that's what is supposed to happen.
That's a very myopic way to look at it.
The people of Jamaica, that's not myopic, that's strategic.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
The people of Jamaica have been exploited now for 500 years. You have every right to say, we are nationalizing these resorts. We're nationalizing these ports. We're nationalizing these boats. This is your damn bill for the last half a millennium. Instead, they got cats coming over here trying to indulge their weekend fantasy at Disney World.
Deal with it, nigga.
And this is why Jamaica don't have people who Jamaica got some riders, but then they got the others arguing for being over here. Jamaica is one of the most beautiful places on this planet, but the children of Jamaica don't think it is.
So can I respond, or are you just gonna talk over me?
Stop whining.
Do I respond? Like, yeah,
Sir, you
kind
don't. First of all, you don't talk over the host. I'm not talking over you.
I have
You
never
don't talk
talked
over
over
the
you. I
host,
let you
sir.
speak. I
Sir,
let
the
you speak.
point is, you all are the grandchildren of Jamaica, and you don't see Jamaica as worth fighting and dying or investing in. And by the way, there's black folk who are investing in Jamaica. The real thing is you don't have enough of them because you'd rather be over here playing with Minnie Mouse and making excuses for why you're not over there. The cultural attitude is different. We would rather be broke in Chicago and standing on 10 toes than to go flee somewhere else talking about, boy, so we're glad we gave that up over there. That's the difference.
So am I going to respond, or are you just going to talk over me?
How many children you have?
I don't have any children. Can I
A
respond,
Jamaican with
please?
no children? They don't sound right. A Jamaican
Well,
in Florida with no children. This is
that's
not correct.
That's the honest truth.
Okay,
Can I respond, please? Because
I'm gonna contact Judge Maybelline and get the documentation on that. But go ahead.
All right. So first, going back to my mother, she built capital here, and then she's back in Jamaica. She has a beautiful bed and breakfast where she employs Jamaicans. So again, it's about going to a place where you can get capital so you can invest. That's what the Chinese do, and that's what most immigrants who go to Jamaica do. And the last thing I want to say on Iran, when that happened to Iran, U.S. had a coup in their country. They again, to the Iranians' credit, they did get rid of the person for the crew, but from the coup. But you do have to understand that they're still trading bonds with Israel, which is no mistake, and they're still under a lot of sanctions by the United States. So it's not like they just got their oil and is happy ever after.
Well, absolutely. No, sir. That's called resistance. Just like us, we didn't get our liberation from chattel slavery and it was happily ever after either, sir. What's your point?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that there's still a lot of people dying because of that.
And it will continue to be because you are in a global war against white supremacy. Is this news?
No, it's not. But what I'm saying is that you have to be more tactical. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Sir, we've been as tactical as we need to be. At some point, you have to just go ahead and go head up.
No, I hear you.
That's the part we're at now. And the fundamental difference is we realize, man, you can't make no progress like that. And by the way, let's not try to falsify what's going on as far as places like Jamaica and the Caribbean. You got more cats trying to get out of there and come to New York and Florida than you have going the other direction. If your mom got a bed and breakfast over there, that's great. That's wonderful. I wish there was 1,000 more like that. At least she values it in that regard. Meanwhile, her son is still sitting over here.
Because I'm trying to build my own capital too. Like I just for the record, I was in Jamaica for the last 6 months, but what I realized is that I need basically more money, and my mother she wasn't helping me out the way I wish she was.
Okay,
so
it would be. Here's the issue: your attitude about it is the problem. Is the attitude about it there because you're not talking like a Jamaican who's in America. You're talking about like an American who visits Jamaica.
No, I was there trying. Anyways, I hear what you're saying. That's a good point.
And that's why the attitude about that, those two things can coexist. What I'm saying is that attitude and reparations cannot coexist. Also, one last thing. You like
All right.
this? You like the position on reparations?
Yeah, I do.
Do you qualify?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, you got principle for it. Although his principle includes himself, I will admit that. So at least you're standing on principle.
Yeah, like I said, Jamaica, as you know, was colonized by the British, so we have to go to the British and get our reparations from the British.
Well, I look forward to you all doing that. If you can convince the folk over there to stop being part of the Commonwealth and stop seeing themselves as artificial Brits, that would be a major step in the right direction.
Well, that's happening. Jamaica's actually, I think, that's either next year or the year after, they're going to be a republic. Or we're going to.
Do you know how long we've been hearing that happen?
I mean, Barbados was it last year or 2 years ago? So again, this is just part of the process.
I've already covered that on my program there. I'll believe it when it happens. I certainly hope it does. Although one last thing, if that does happen, get ready for the shooting to start again.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. That probably that's probably something that's going to happen. And hopefully I'll be in a financial position in which I'll be in Jamaica and not here.
Okay, we'll look forward to it. Thank you very much for giving us a call. I respect his position on that, at least. I respect his position, at least on supporting reparations and whatnot. The only thing is he's kind of trying to tether it there to something else. And it's like, ooh, can I bring this with it too? And it's like, there's where it's like, okay, there's the other shoe dropping. There's the other shoe dropping. Okay, let me go ahead and see if I can get 71 Pan Let me see if I can get 71 Pan. Okay, 71 Pan. I think I've talked to you before here. This is one of our Asian comrades here. Don't worry, brother. You're not on camera. Turn your audio off. Turn your
Sorry,
speakers
yeah.
off.
Sorry,
Okay.
that's the audio. I had to turn the
Okay.
audio
No,
off on YouTube.
nobody else can see you, but I do need you to keep your camera on for me. Nobody else can see you
Okay.
except me. I'm the only one who can see you.
Okay, perfect.
All right. And now I forget which part of Asia your people are from.
So Asia's a big continent.
It's a
So
gigantic
pretty
one.
much mix.
Were your people
with
like Vietnamese or Southern Asia?
no, more like East Asia. So I'm mixed with Japanese, Taiwanese, and Aborigine. But I was born in the States.
Okay.
But
I'm
my
about to say,
parents
that was gonna
came
be
to
a
this
rough one.
country since the early 1980s.
Okay, well, you got a hell of a story to tell right there. That's the whole thing right there. Ethnically, how do you get along?
To be honest, I don't get along with all Asians, to be honest, because most of them, if most of them, if not all of them, most of them have an anti-black racist views about Black American freedmen of chattel slavery. They whitewash Black history or Black people's progress. They tell Black American freedmen to put themselves up bootstraps. And I push back against the Asians. I tell Asian people, if it wasn't for Black American freedmen, Asian people as a collective will not be wealthy, will not progress, will not have civil rights. And I explained to them that, the affirmative action is supposed to be for Black American freedmen of chattel slave. Unfortunately, it got affirmative action got manipulated to include everybody else. And a lot of Asians don't know the history of America very well. I had to educate them because they always worship white Europeans or white supremacists. Thinking
Yeah, I
that
mean,
white
this
people
is how you end up in a situation with so many of them following Ed Blum to the Supreme Court, and then as soon as they
Yes.
did that, next thing you know, they're the ones getting kicked out of the schools and whatnot. The numbers didn't go anywhere, and it's like, yeah, you wound up just helping him and his friends, so
Right.
and eager to do so. Anyway, did you hear tonight's program? Did you hear our
I
interview?
did. I heard from beginning to end, and I knew already, like, because when you did the first interview with Dr. Jill Stein, I'm also working with Audra Walton on reparations for Black American freedmen of chattel slave. Because Audra and I had a conversation that, the reparations language, it stay on the website, but the two candidates whom we interviewed, they need to be consistent, clear, and you're right, because sound bites is going to time how long they can respond, right? Or reply to the moderators. And so she and I've been having conversations that Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware, they hear us, but at the same time they don't want us to, I guess they don't want us to control their campaigns moving forward. And I kind of knew like that the Green Party, like Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware, they're definitely gonna lose a lot of Black American freedmen voters, because you're right, Black American freedmen voters know what they want, and Black American freedmen voters have studied the issue for more than 400 years.
I think
And
what
from-
happened there, I mean, I'm not going to say word salad. In some cases, it was more like word soup. But what I will say is that,
Sure.
it's clear to people when you have a firm grasp on something because you go straight to your answers. It's also clear to people when you're still trying to figure it out.
Right.
And when you're asked a question, it's very clear you're still trying to figure out what your position is. That's readily obvious. And if I
Yes.
had a critique to give respectfully, is y'all might want to figure out what your position actually is.
Mhm.
And that means that you're going to have to say no to some people and tell them, that's not what we're doing, so that you can actually have a position. You can't be all things to all people.
Right.
That's a great little fantasy, but that's not the way it works. You can't be all things to all people because people have competing interests. So
Of
you're
course,
going to be
which I understand.
something to some and nothing to others, and you're going to have to be all right with that. But this idea that you're going to sell us that you're going to be everything to everybody, if we can all just get along, that's unrealistic.
Yeah, and because I advise her, because Audra, who I work with, she was frustrated that how many times she fought for the Green Party to get the language correct, freedmen, Black American freedmen of chattel slavery, right? And I hear her out and understand. I told her, like, in case the Green Party does not want to update the language, moving forward in the future, I told her I advise her that it's probably better for her or anyone to create a independent party from the Green Party, such as for example, the Black American Freedmen Super PAC, or the Black American Freedmen Party that's exclusive for Black American freedmen of chattel slavery, run by and owned by Black American freedmen. When it comes to like managing finances, and putting platforms exclusive for Black American freedmen. I mean, that was my suggestion to her because I hate to see my colleague getting frustrated and then fight and then get up and fight. I just don't like to see it. And I try to be about solutions to prevent, because I understand that Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware, the reason to me, it's crazy why they mix lineage-based reparations with race-based, because they don't want to alienate their constituents.
Yeah, there's the thing is that Dr. Stein said it when I talked to her that, when she said that she was on this side before she was on this side, what we talking about.
Right.
But then she started getting feedback and folk chirping in her ear, and we covered that. That's why I don't have to go beat a point home and go over it 5 or 6 times. Y'all heard what she said. Well, I mean, I was on that, and then I got some feedback from some other people. Oh, so some folk, you took our position, and then some other folk got at you, and then she starts going in another direction with it. And so, well, can we start modifying this? And from our position, no, not really, because we're not making this a point because we're being jerks about it. What we're saying is that these are things that are undermining what we're doing. We can't get it fixed because every time it's time to focus on what we need, somebody keeps wanting to add some divergent thing to it that's specifically calibrated to undermine it. No wonder nothing gets done. Ed Blum didn't take them folk to the Supreme Court to ask for something for everybody. He took them to the Supreme Court specifically just for them.
For them, exactly, right.
And to say who they were going to exclude. And I'm like, oh, there's your formula there.
Right, and even like before the interview you had with Dr. Jill Stein, I talked to one of my colleagues who's on the green, who does, I think, marketing, and I warned my colleague that when Dr. Jill Stein goes on an interview with Jason Black, Dr. Jill Stein needs to be very clear and specific. Black American freedmen of chattel slavery, because the channel is exclusive about Black American freedmen. And I told my colleague so many times. And then my colleague told me, oh, how about the people of color? Then I had to correct my colleague and said, nope, there's no such thing as people of color. People of color say manipulative term to not really necessarily include Black American freedmen. And then my colleague said, oh, but how about the immigrants? Oh, immigrants are going to be the first person hit, are going to be the first people to be heard in America. I said, no, Black American freedmen are going to be the first people to be heard in America. Then immigrants last. So I had to give it like the history, because some of my colleagues don't have a historical understanding. And then when I explained to them why delineation is very important, right? And then they understand why, because before that they were not informed, because I read a lot of books, I did research, asked questions. What does American freedman mean? Of course, with Dr. Claude Anderson. So basically I have a basic idea what your community really needs without including others, because I understand you guys did a lot of fighting for 400 years and can include a lot of groups. So a lot of groups don't reciprocate in return, and I see that a lot every day.
Well, even more than that, they assimilate. There's the other issue. There is I mean, you've probably seen it yourself. I mean, after you get past the first or second generation, they start voting Republican. The foreign policy decisions that these folks sit up here and complain about, they become big proponents of it. Whether it's in Asia, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Mexico, you got the Ted Cruzes and Gonzalez and everything else backing the policies that undermine these places in Mexico and Central America and South America.
Right. And that's why exactly.
Now we have been consistent against that. But we're the only group that's been consistent because we haven't assimilated like that. And our culture is not to do so. But for everybody else, that's what happens. Give it 1 or 2 generations. And next thing you know, they're right in lockstep with everybody else. Vivek Ramaswamy. We can go down the list. That's the angle that they come at it from. So when we get things straight, that's what's going to stop American imperialism. That's what's going to stop white supremacy, because everybody else is going to get assimilated. We're the only group that won't get assimilated. When we get in charge, that kind of stuff stops.
Yes. And I'll tell you that, right. And I'll say this, Jason Black, because a lot of the non-Black groups want to assimilate with white supremacy because they appear to think that they're white on the inside. What is that phrase? I remember the phrase someone told me. So they're white on the outside and yellow or brown on the inside. I'm sure you heard that phrase before, right? So in other words, the Asian communities treat their own people horrible, right? But when they see like white people, they get very scared very quickly. They bow down to white people.
Oh no, I mean
whenever,
when you take a look at the
yeah,
interracial marriage rates, I mean, I'm not even talking about in America. I'm talking about in Asia. I mean,
yeah,
if a
it's
white
very low
man
for,
show the disrespect that is across the board shown to Asian males by Asian females, we can call it white supremacy. You can call it imperialism. You can call it whatever the
sure,
hell you want to, but that propensity is a real thing. And what's helped to turn it back is being around us, because it's like, okay, we don't really co-sign that kind of thing. We've never co-signed that kind of thing. That's the only place where you get pushback. Otherwise, you just get steamrolled shamelessly. Anybody
yeah,
who's watched anime can see for the last 40 years. There it is right there. There it is
yeah,
right
but
there.
right. But I just want to focus on like what you said, because you made like very good points today, because you like you pushed back on Butch Ware, because I could tell Butch Ware he was getting he felt like he was being challenged, but something he has never been challenged before, because Butch Ware and Dr. Joe Stein, when they're on the Breakfast Club, I'm pretty sure you saw the clip, because both of them, Butch Ware and Dr. Joe Stein, they were never challenged by Solomon the God, because Solomon the God was just too open, you know what I mean? Like he didn't
Yeah, I mean,
like
he's trying
what
to make friends and things like that. And my thing
right.
is that doesn't do candidates very well. Kamala Harris is getting her ass kicked right now because she spent 2.5 months hiding, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to getting out here, finding out what the real issues are, hearing the real criticisms and taking those on early so that you get a grasp for it. She's waited until 30 days before the election to finally start addressing questions, and she's getting her skull knocked in. If
Yes,
you
and she's
don't do
getting very
yourself a lot of favors
right.
dealing with people who like you in politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's your base. Let your
Right.
base know you 10 toes down, but you need to spend literally half your time talking to the folks who don't agree with you, because those are your independents. That's where you grow your
Mm-hmm.
numbers from. You don't grow your numbers from your base. They're already with you. You better go get some outside folk out here. I'll let you have the
Right.
last word.
Sir, yeah, and I'll say this, for like the future, for any candidates who are running on reparations, regardless of political parties, whether they're running for Democrats, Republican, or third party. I want to say this, like the candidates, and I stress this every day whenever Democrats call me, because I always ask about reparations. I always ask them, meaning the candidates, you guys have reparations on the platform, and they say, oh, we didn't think about it, but you should, because just because you say it, it does something. And if you have to put it in writing, writing is like evidence. When it's in writing, that means that you're probably more likely meaning the candidates are more likely to do reparations. And that sometimes I get pushback. So I always say this to any candidates or anyone in the future. Make sure you ask a lot of deep questions. When they say they support reparations, make sure you ask, is it for limited space? Okay. Limited space for the Black American freedmen of chattel slavery. Check that off. Okay. And the next question is, do you support an anti-Black hate crime bill for the Black American freedmen of chattel slavery? Because they need a hate crime bill, because a lot of groups receive hate crime bills. The LGBTQ Asians receive a hate crime bill, and they did not include Black American freedmen of chattel slavery. And then and then last is, whenever candidates create platforms, they had to make sure they create separate categories. Don't say, for example, Black American freedmen and this, because LGBTQ don't say LGBTQ and this. They don't say it.
Yeah,
Same
there is
thing
no
with
and when you speak to
right,
them. It's LGBT period, Jewish
exactly, right,
period, feminist
right, and
period.
right. Because I understand they want to be inclusive. I get that, but there needs to be separate categories. There needs to be separate categories if they want to appear to the base, but there needs to be delineation. And unfortunately, a lot of people who've been running the political system for more than 40 years, of baby boomers, Gen Xers, silent generations, I would say they're beyond repair. There's no way to convince them. So the only best thing to do is vote all of them out and put new fresh bloods. And yes, black, the Congressional Black Caucus needs a complete makeover with a replacement called the Black American Freedmen Congressional Caucus, and that's it. And if the existing members of the Congressional Black Caucus have an issue, if they don't want to like support them, they need to go. Let young people in, because young people have fresh blood. I mean, have fresh ideas.
Well,
And they're gonna fight
definitely,
for
you
it.
want to make sure that, for example, when you have folks with different ID, when you talk about put separate platforms, the other reason why you have to do that is
Mhm.
because these other things tend to compete against what we're talking about. They tend to go against
Exactly.
that, and it needs to be. They try to piggyback off of it, so we never get to focusing on what we're talking about because other folks, oh, we need to put this agenda in here too, and then they're not really trying to get a separate anything taken care of. They say, oh, there's momentum. Let's see if we can piggyback off of that. So there's where that needs to be shut down. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Need to go ahead and help him land his plane. But yeah, the Asian dude is more on code and got a better understanding than a lot of these black folk do out here. It ain't that hard, people. Do not let him sit up here and know these things better than you do. It ain't that hard. All right, I've got Brandy up here on Zoom. Brandy is looking to connect her audio here. Okay, Brandy just gave me the 1 moment finger. Okay, so I guess she can hear me. Well, she just gave me the 1 moment finger. She's waiting to get that taken care of. This newfangled technology. Brandy is looking at getting together this newfangled technology. She's saying, I don't know, is this Zoom? Is this Flash? Is this Zip? All right, unmute yourself, Brandy. I think you got it. Just unmute yourself. There you go.
Salutations. I'm sorry. Make me nervous.
Oh, no need to be nervous. It's just you, me, and a few thousand of our closest friends. No need to be nervous.
Forgive me. B1 salute, Brother Black. Thank you for having me on for a second. I tapped in quite late, but I stay current. So with what's going on, I want to say that I'm not really a big fan of Jill Stein. Or really this brother. I've heard him speak maybe just in little bits and pieces up until today. I felt like forgive me, sir, you made me nervous. I felt that his word battling was just intense. It was just way too much for me. The fact that I think that when he addressed reparations, he wasn't clear on it himself. And that in itself made me feel like, well, you definitely don't know what we're talking about if you're not clear, and you're adding all these extra complex scenarios into it. He made your question even more complex when it really was quite simple.
Well, my thing about it is, you have to think about it like this. When people ask you that question and then you respond that way, what we're asking now is, what is it you're selling us? Exactly what is it you're trying to sell us here?
Right. And I'm in Aurora, Colorado, and I work on campaigns. I work on campaigns too, and I was kind of working on a little bit with the Unity Party on Cornell West campaign. However,
by the way, everyone, remember the brother last week and can I get you into this? I'm on Cornell West little team over here and whatnot. By the way, I ain't heard from him yet. By the way, just giving y'all a quick update. By the way, ain't heard nothing yet.
Me neither. To your point.
To all the Cornell West weirdos, by the way, we ain't heard from him yet. But go ahead.
Me neither. No, you're correct. You're absolutely correct on that. I'm sorry. You're absolutely correct on that, sir. I reached out initially before he was on the ballot. Even I reached out because I felt like I listened to your broadcast religiously, for the last couple years, so I understand. And I believe that you said something like, if you want, a candidate to work for you, got to be able to reach out to him, talk to him, help get them into that level of thinking of what the Black First agenda is, really. You know what I mean? And I reached out a lot, several times. I mean, through email and messenger, and no response prior to him being even nominated or brought here to be nominated. So I clearly am in agreement with you. I am in agreement with you.
Well, like I say, Cornell, he's the only candidate you can think of here who's sat up here and he's wanting to run on the ballot. The Democrats getting him kicked off on the ballots in states, and he's still up here talking about supporting Kamala Harris. So very clearly, anybody supporting him, dude, he's not even supporting himself. Y'all need to get over it. I'll let you have the last word.
That's the thing, Mr. Black, is that I only mentioned that because I talk about, with other candidates having the reparations thing, excuse me, not thing, reparations and having a Black agenda and everything that goes along with what we've been educated on. I only say that because they're not clear, and I feel like if they're making these statements of reparations, but they're not really standing on it, they're more focused on broader other worldly issues that aren't affecting us here. I feel like that's just pandering. Everything is like pandering to FBA, NBA freedmen currently,
Well, I
and
mean, look,
and
the
it's
good
a
point
waste.
about this is that's the reason why we need to talk to them. So that we're not hearing it second and third hand, because remember, you had a whole bunch of folks saying, oh, this is what their position is, and oh, y'all need to support them because this is what it is. And then when you talk to them, well, you find out what it really is. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight, Brandy. We appreciate that. Let me see if I can get, oh, this is rather ominous. Bruce Banner. Although it's kind of Bruce Banner, but let me go ahead and see if I can get Bruce Banner up here. That'll be very nice to have, Bruce. I hope you stood by your phone. Hope he's not getting caught with this newfangled technologies. All right, Bruce. All right, brother. It looks like you're dialing in from the moon. Go ahead and unmute yourself, sir. Try unmuting yourself. I hope this works.
Hey.
All right, Bruce. What's on your mind?
I came in late for the interview, but when I came in, I realized, this dude is making me uninclined to vote more so than I even thought before, because he was given a meeting at a mosque in Durham, and he was looking for support, and he was very argumentative because people were asking him, what are your stances on things like abortion? And he was like, well, you can give abortion religiously all the way into the last trimester. And you should stay out of what you call it, other groups of people's business, because you don't want the other people talking to you about whether or not you should have two wives. And I'm like, first off, we already have that. Number two,
and how's that working out for us? But go ahead.
And number two, what you call it?
Did you get frozen up?
What you call it? There's a reason. If you have an abortion, there has to be an abortion religiously.
Well, brother, I mean, look, here's my position to all this stuff. And if you'll notice, I said the same thing about that I was saying about, when it comes to reparations or illegals. Tell me where the benefit is. If you want me to support something or overlook something, okay, simple. Tell me how it benefits me. Tell me where I'm coming out ahead with this, because if I got questions about it, and your job as a politician is make it very clear and simple, hey, here's how you come out ahead. Okay. And furthermore, you should want that. You should want to have the opportunity to explain to folk, okay, here's a misnomer about this. Let me explain to you how you're coming out ahead. Not the Jedi mind tricking, well, support this because it's good to support it. Okay, no, it's not good to support if you can't tell me how I'm coming out ahead. Well, it's a groovy thing to do. Okay, groovy is nice. Why? How does this benefit me? What if I don't care about grooviness? What if I don't care about being groovy? What if I don't care about being slick? What if I don't care about having swag? Okay, now what? So they're getting a crash course on how to deal with this stuff. But look, it's their race to run. They want to be candidates. If these are their positions, my job is to just make sure that, we get a clear articulation of what their position is. And that so often happens when folk actually hear themselves and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't mean it like that. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't sound so great when somebody repeats it back to you sometimes. If that's your response to hearing your words repeated back to you, you might want to this might be the moment to reconsider your words. I'll let you have the last word.
Right. I mean, I was like, man, as a Muslim person, I would not want to be one screen running around here saying the stuff that he says and then pop up certain places. He might want to get it. Somebody might want to crack his skull for some of the stuff he be saying.
Well,
and
let's not do that. But thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We do not, in no way, you don't want anything like that there happening. If you don't rock with what they're saying, just let them know it's like, hey, we ain't fooling with that. You got other places to be. So just keep it G. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Alicia. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Alicia here. Okay, Alicia is in the bed looking like she in a Key Sweat video. She is in the bed. I'm talking about looking up at the phone. Alicia, tell me why you looking like Gladys Knight circa 1982. Oh no, she looked like she in bed looking like she getting ready for a Betty Wright video. Turn your audio on, girl, with your Zimbabwe broadband. What is she doing? She got some white teeth though. Okay, so her orthodontist, she must have paid him a grip. I don't think those are veneers. She got it real close
I
too.
think I'm here now.
Okay, tell me those. Tell me those are not veneers. Those better not be veneers.
Okay, no, they're not veneers.
Okay, well she say okay, they're not. Okay, those are veneers. Okay, well that's okay.
If you want to say so.
Well, she say is I paid a lot of money for these. That's better than getting a Birkin bag. Let me tell you.
That's right.
That's
they're mine.
Better than a Birkin. All right, Alicia, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I have no one to vote for. I really don't. And this conversation right here sort of summed everything up, especially the range from hostility in the beginning of the call, how it escalated so fast with demands around what we need to do, the demands for our vote, to the call, I think 3 callers back, rationalizing that abortion solves the issue of crime. That crime is a natural situation for us. This is who we are. It reeked of Biden 1994 crime bill.
Oh boy, Alicia, why did you have to do that? Why did Alicia have to do that, y'all? Jason, are you going to go there? I'm not going nowhere. I'm just shining the spotlight on what we already saw.
Hey, tell me, Jason, what did I do wrong?
You mentioned what the fellow from Orlando, the Jamaican dude in Orlando said. All them abortions there, I mean, they would have probably been criminals. And okay. And by the way, what did Butch say? Oh, well, you know, we are the most violent folk. I'm like, really? We're the most violent people. And that's why I started naming off other places. I'm like, are you sure? Because there's this thing called Google where we can look up the actual numbers. Are you sure about that, sir? And so by the way, I just couldn't help but notice that connection there that you inadvertently made. But please go ahead.
No, that was it. The hostility, and that is who we are to them. They don't see us. We are not their constituency. We are not their allies. They don't come to us first to be allies. They go to the larger, dominant society to establish themselves. And then they show up around campaign time, and all of this comes out at us.
Yeah.
And I can't take that and be as insulted as I have been this tonight.
No, look, I mean, that's the whole reason for it here. And like I said, I don't color things one way or the other. I don't lead things one way or the other. I let folk have their say. I certainly let them talk. And here's the other thing. He knew what he was going to be asked before he came. His whole thing was that was going to be clarifying any misnomers we had about these other things. Oh, don't worry. He's more in tune with what the situation is than Jill is. And I'm like, that's not a good sign. But okay, well, if he wants to talk about it. And what I'm saying is that this was the more dialed in person. This was the more focused person. That's what you heard here tonight. So I'm like, if this satisfied your fears and, gave you confidence, well, election day is next week. Pull the lever.
That's right. How many hours? I mean, and he's so recent. I've been seeing him. I went through what happened to Cynthia McKinney? What happened to Mr. Nixon? What happened to the guy who's always recalling music songs? Cornel West. I mean, I wouldn't vote for Cornel West, but
I guess if you're just bored. Look, here's the bottom line. The bottom line is a lot of folks are stuck in 1970. What? A lot of folks are sitting up here looking at this like it's the Village People. They're playing their golden oldies. They're playing their old classic records. And it hasn't caught up to them yet where we really are. So a lot of them think about us as being monolithic. They think we're just a younger monolithic group. And that's why he was naming Malcolm X and all these other folk right there. And I'm just like, you do realize that we don't just name Malcolm, we name folk a whole lot more contemporary. And those are names you're not talking about. The other thing is, I'm going to say it. Now, this part I will say. You get these cats out here and no disrespect at all. But rattling off a bunch of Afrocentric sounding names, supposed to be this author over here and this professor over here and whatnot. And what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if we don't have the same reaction we had for Khalid Muhammad. Don't be surprised if we don't have the same reaction that we did for Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. John Henry Clark. Don't be surprised if we don't have that same response. So rattling off these names, y'all need to make sure them folk done, the paperwork has been checked out and that the folks are clear on it. You rattle off names and we're all sitting up here like, who? What? And what I'm saying is that those are names within the circles they travel. Have you done the footwork to make sure that these are names in the circles we in? Or are these really just some names of just, if you know, you know? And it's like, okay, we got no way of venting that. So I'm glad they did great and wonderful things for you, but don't be surprised when the rest of us are like, who? Like Jamon Hansu from Guardians of the Galaxy? Star-Lord. Who? No disrespect. No disrespect. None whatsoever. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but by the way, y'all do that kind of stuff and it doesn't strike us as you're really dialed in and really informed. That's not the way it strikes us. It really isn't. And I should know. I mean, look, some of the folk we naming, they were not household names until people like me put together documentaries and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is now mounted up to millions, promoting these people and getting it out there. Now everybody and their mama knows who they are. Some of these other folks out there and whatnot, when y'all start doing that, it's like, hey, by the way, that's not going to thrill us until we check the paperwork. Once we do that, we can see what happens. But they got to check themselves first. Let me see if I can get LaShawn up here on Zoom. LaShawn. Yeah, folks, I mean, it's not 1973 anymore. It really isn't. All right, Brother LaShawn, we got you here on Zoom. What's on your mind? Okay, Brother LaShawn is trying to get his audio here going.
Can you hear me, Jason?
Yeah, I hear you. Turn off your speakers. Turn off your YouTube, sir.
All right, Jason.
All right, brother. What's on your mind?
That called in like a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir. You were trying to get a hold of Cornel West. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
No, that's not a good look. How'd that turn out for you, sir?
When you got to meet with him last Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Go
on.
I didn't get to talk to him about meeting with you.
Oh, boy.
I wanted to talk to him about meeting with you. I had intended on doing it.
See, what happened was.
And I did reach out to him, so.
He didn't reach back. You reached out to him, but he didn't reach back.
Talk to him specifically about coming on your program, on your broadcast.
You reached out to Cornell, but Cornell didn't reach back. Sounds familiar.
Well,
I'm not upset about it. I ain't mad at you. It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't.
All right. Anyway, what's on your mind, brother?
Okay. So about this Butch Ware dude. The dude was very sassy, very disrespectful. He wasn't trying to hear nothing that you were saying, and he was not answering no questions. He was ducking and dodging questions, and this is my problem with the third party. We're supposed to be a distinction from the two major parties, but in a lot of ways, I see a lot of similarities with the Green Party, for example, where they literally ducking and dodging the questions. They can't give no straightforward answers. Like y'all already know, I'm a candidate on the ballot here in the state of Colorado under the Unity Party. Every time I'm asked a question, I answer it directly. So that's just very frustrating that we have people that are running for office that can't even answer basic questions.
I mean, okay, let me just address that real quick, folks, because I didn't even get to ask this. I asked Jill Stein this, but let's just keep it a $103. When you say these folk running for office, are they really? Come on now. I mean, let's just put it on the bricks. By the way, these folk running for office, are they really? Are they really running for office, or are they running to make a point? Are they really running for office, or are they running for attention? Are they really running for office, or are they running as a movement? Are they actually running for office, or are they running for something else? I think that's a question that needs to be asked. I asked Jill Stein that. Respectfully, but by the way, when you bring up that point that all these folk running for office, I would stop you all and admonish you. By the way, is that actually what's happening? Oh, please proceed.
Mm. Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm running for office because I actually want to do something specifically for our people, for foundational Black Americans, freedmen in my city, in my district, in my state. So, I mean, I believe it depends on that individual. I myself, I wanted to be a perfect servant. I wanted to do the work of our people. I was tired of our people getting put on the back burner and nobody pushing a Black first agenda. I've been pushing a Black first agenda since 2018, since the Black agenda came to Denver, Colorado. And as you know, Jason, I've been tuning into your broadcast for almost a decade now. So I already knew about the Black agenda. I listened to Dr. Claude Anderson. I decided to, throw my hat in the ring because I was tired of our people just being maligned, neglected, as Dr. Claude Anderson is always saying. So my intentions are pure. I'm not doing this for no ambition. I'm doing this because it needs to be done. I'm tired of our people just being left behind, nobody speaking up on our behalf or doing nothing specifically for us. So I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in the realm of politics. So this is why I ran for office. This is why I put my hat in the ring. So I can only speak for me personally. That's the reason why I did it. Now these other groups, yeah, they could be doing it for other reasons. We really don't know. These other candidates, we don't know exactly what their intentions are.
Well, like I say, I mean, to your own self, be true. And that's the best you can look for. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Also, wanted to go ahead here and thank everyone who's contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo, my man, Mr. Collington, Mr. Wilburn, Keith, Tariq L. Big shout out to you as well. Thank you very much for your support. Karen, the only Karen I actually like. Thank you very much as well. And like I say, I've just tried to do my job as the new Black media. That's what I try to specialize in, just do my part. All right, let me see if I can get Brother Elijah. I got Brother Elijah here on Zoom. You've been waiting for a minute, but we're going to go ahead and see if we can get him up here. So let me get Brother Elijah here on Zoom. I'm waiting for Brother Elijah on Zoom.
Hey, what's going on, big brother?
All right, Brother Elijah here's on Zoom. All right, Brother Elijah on Zoom. What's on your mind?
Hey, brother, I got a off the wall question.
Always.
Yeah, but it's pertaining to tonight's topic. Look, before I ask my question, shout out to those candidates, Miss Jill Stein or Mrs. Jill Stein and Mr. Ware. But I always had this question. Every time I see this, they always come to Black people and everything like that. These liberals and everything like that. And I always wonder if Jill Stein is trying to sell her program to the Black audience, why is it like, and Malcolm X complained about this back in the early days of the NAACP, why does she have to be in the lead and a Black man has to be her sidekick, or a Black person has to be her sidekick? Why can't, if she really wants us to thrive, like she said, why can't she put him in the lead and she backs our play?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of folk have been asking that because I will try to be delicate here.
Yes, sir.
But the bottom line is, everybody, that was the acknowledgement and the observation of Angela Rye. You know, folks didn't like that. But, I mean, Jill Stein is the definition of a perennial candidate. She hasn't just run for president. She's run for a number of different offices over a number of different years. And certainly, I guess that speaks to her civic mindedness. And I would never denigrate somebody for that. So certainly it speaks to her civic mindedness, but it also speaks to her strategic mindedness also.
Yes, sir.
And it's just, by the way, are you sure you're the best tool? Because you all know me. I don't ever sit up here and promote myself that way. I don't have a problem promoting somebody else. You know, if they're better to run the ball than me, give them the damn ball. As long as we score, that's the only thing I've ever been concerned about. I've never been like, if I'm not running the ball, it don't need to pop off. No, if somebody else is in a better position, They're the better man. They're the better woman. Let them run the ball and do that. I don't think that that happens in the Green Party. I think that she's risen to ascendancy there, and essentially it's her party now. And anybody else has to figure out how they're going to get in where they fit in. But
Yes, sir.
essentially, I mean, it looks like hers. And that what I'm saying is that that's not very strategic, because every victory fuels the next victory. Yeah, but every defeat fuels the next defeat also. And we
Yes,
got a
sir.
situation here where y'all aren't even putting points up on the board locally. With that kind of national name recognition, at least you should be starting in one region, one city. And that's not happening either. So she has summarily rejected the idea of a fundamental reconsideration of how they do things.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just being honest. She's rejected that outright. So if you like the Green Party, you better like Jill Stein, because that's what it's going to be. And
Yes,
by the
sir.
way, there's a lot of folk who they really groovy about Jill Stein the way they were about Bernie Sanders. You know, Bernie just wasn't going to be a perennial candidate. So if you want to vote for her every 4 years, she'll be there.
Yes, sir. And then I got a question, because you was dropping some serious knowledge about the abortion. I keep my mouth shut on that, because that's not an area I find myself strong in, because of there's too many opinions. So I always let the scholars talk about
I'm just
that.
going to say one thing in that regard there. When we
Please.
talking about black babies, I don't see how that can be an opinion.
No, exactly. No, that's why I keep my mouth shut. No, I keep my mouth shut. You said something that was very deep about 80 million, and you said since 1975. And then when you look at our numbers today, so
Yeah.
you say we from what I heard, we're like probably a little over 48 million, and you tack along the 80 million, so we would probably been a population of 100 and relatively
Well, I mean,
128 million.
look, assuming, of course, you know, other things happen, babies carried to term, stillbirths, things like that. Okay, you're not going to get all 80 million of them. You're probably going to get most of them. What I'm saying is our numbers would easily be double what they are. You know, what you're seeing happening among Latinos and Asians. Our numbers would easily be double what they are today, if you didn't have this social and political policy since Margaret Sanger of targeting our births. Well,
Right.
Jason, what about the conditions? Look here, we find a way. We've always had it ain't never been easy being black. It ain't in America, it ain't never been a cakewalk. It ain't never been good times. That's never been the case. So miss me with the it be hard. It's always been hard, nigga. It ain't never been easy.
Yes, sir.
So no, somebody trying to sit up here and intimidate me by saying, well, you know, it'd be rough to raise them. It's rough to raise the ones we got. And we gonna find a way to do it. Most of y'all, you were raised by old black women who raised the whole damn block. How the hell is it we get to 2024 and somebody telling me about what our limitations were? Most of us were raised by, grew up with, in the neighborhood with women who raised the whole block. For those of us who were old enough, if you had the first color television, all the kids in the neighborhood came over to the house. Everybody was there. It was never you by yourself. It was always you and 8 other kids in the neighborhood. Mama may have been a hoe, daddy a deadbeat, this, that, and the other. Wasn't nobody looking for nothing to eat on Thanksgiving. You had 5 or 6 houses you could go to. Wasn't nobody hungry on Thanksgiving. You had 5 or 6 places you could go. And I'm talking about every single one of us in America got the same story. How you gonna sit here and tell me what we can't do? We've been doing it the whole time. Now you just robbed us of 40 million other folk who would have been doing it with us there, and the numbers would be radically different. They get you to sit here and rationalize your own disenfranchisement and your own depowerment. We've been doing that. That ain't new. We've been doing that. What's new is this idea that we don't do that. That's what me, I. Sexy red and here, I got 8 abortions. That's the new thing. That's not our culture. Our culture has always been, it don't matter how many mouths there are here, we all we got. And we looking out for them. That's the way that's always been. So for somebody to sit up here and try to pass off some lie that 40 million others. Ooh, what are we going to do with them? The same thing we did with the last 40 million. And by the way, in case y'all want to have a real world idea of what that is, that basically is a 1-to-1. You ain't got to help 15 other people, just one other. And oh yeah, we were at our strongest when we did that. When that was our code, we were at our strongest. Other folk learned that from us. They said, damn, that works like a son of a gun. Yeah, it sure does.
Well, big brother, that's what I'm glad you said all that, because that leads to the next question. If that if we didn't have that many abortions in a Black nation, and let's just say all those babies was able to be born and live their lives, all right, God bless the dead. My question is, would we have been targeted for gentrification if they were here as strong as we are today?
I mean, no, look, the obstacles we face would be the same. As a matter of fact, in some cases, they might be more severe. The real thing, though, is that, by the way, that we would have more of us. And that matters. The reason why they've been flooding the zone with illegals is because they're hitting you from every side. Gentrification, abortion, imprisonment. They're hitting you from all sides.
Right.
They're not just hitting us with one weapon. They're using an all of the above strategy. And I'm not saying that if those abortions hadn't happened, that would be a panacea, but that would be a huge step forward. Think about that for just a few moments. Our population would most likely be double what it currently is today. Do you realize how compromised the Democrats and these other white supremacist strategies would be against us if they had to deal with double the numbers? What would Atlanta look like today? What would Dallas look like today? What would Houston look like today? What would Detroit look like today? What would Minneapolis look like today? What would Harlem look like today? DC today? These places where they've concentrated their efforts at aborting our kids at, what would those cities look like today? Hell of a whole lot harder to gentrify 80 million of us than to gentrify 40 million of us. Hell of a lot harder. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me see if I can get MB up here on Zoom. Let me get MB on Zoom. Boy, they got folks sitting up here getting y'all to talk about aborting Black children like you're ordering a bag of popcorn. That's a damning commentary. All right, I got MB here on Zoom. What's on your mind, MB?
Hey, big bro, man. Great to enjoy this surprise broadcast here, man. And I know I got to follow that song a little bit because I know I was one of the folks that said, "Hey, what about the Green Party folk?" And
okay, well now you know. Asked and answered. Asked and answered. And I'm just like, and I'm not swaying people one way or the other. I'm saying, hey, make of it what you will. If you like what you heard, and some folks said they did, I'm like, okay, go ahead and do that. Now you know what you're voting for. Make your choice. That's on you.
Yeah, because my whole thing was I heard Jill, I'm like, she's shaky. She's going to be shaky. Wonder what the brother Butch had to say about it. And damn, man, yo, man, how is this dude supposed to be pro-Black yet it's flimsy as Kamala, man? I mean, yo, that don't make no sense, man. No, you know what?
Look, I mean, I'll say it like this, brother. Have y'all noticed the number of academics? I don't mean the DJ. Y'all know I've always talked about this. Okay, it's very interesting that we elevating so many academics. Dr. West, Dr. Lamont Hill. I see a pattern. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. And I'm just like, I just find it very interesting that once we start talking to the academics, it starts all moving it starts migrating in the same direction when you do that. I just couldn't help but notice it.
Yeah. I mean, and he doesn't sound like any Black Muslim I know, man. Like, I don't know any damn Black Muslim talking about abortion, man. Like, nah. Like, I told a Muslim about abortion, you're like, what? Like, nah, man. Like,
man, you tell a Black Muslim you gonna abort his baby, nigga. You playing with your life. Do you understand that? You are playing with your life. You gonna tell a black Muslim you're gonna abort a black Muslim female would never imagine saying those words. You playing with your life if you say that. There's no mosque you can go into and get a receptive audience and you say something like that. Which one y'all serving at?
Yo, I just have more questions than answers at this point. Like, am I going to vote Arby's? Am I going to vote, the couch or Arby's, a couch, Grubhub? I mean, because I don't know, but you know what? And to say all that, man, Green Party's still a better option than the two options, but that doesn't say much at all, though. That doesn't say much at all. So it's
well, look, I mean, our job is to illuminate the terrain in which we find ourselves. That's it. Now you can make a decision, no matter what that decision is. My job is to make sure that it's clarified. I didn't put my thumb on the scales. You heard it objectively and clearly. Now make whatever your choice is going to be. Whatever that decision going to be. Now you know you're making it with your eyes wide open and you're fully informed. This is how you wake up on the day after election day not feeling bad. Because you know why you did what you did. Now, you might not be happy with a bunch of other things, but you're like, hey, at least I didn't make a decision to compromise my integrity. Thank you very much for giving us a call now. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Antonio. Let me see if I can get Antonio up here on Zoom. Working on Antonio. All right, Antonio, I need you to go ahead and turn your camera and your microphone on for me here. I'll give you 5 seconds here or else we got to move on. So I'll give you 5 seconds for that. Okay, Antonio, we got you on Zoom. What's on your mind, brother?
Hey, what's going on, brother? Great show, man. Congratulations on the 8 a.m., man. That's this is a big thing, man. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. What's on your mind?
Okay, so couple things, man. I'm listening to the guy's kind of like his condescension and like he tried to correct you, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't call them illegal, and it's like he's trying to give you media training or something. And it to me is just very condescending to the point that, you know what I'm saying, he doesn't want to directly answer any of the questions, dance around the questions, and on top of that, just when it comes to us trying to just get any kind of understanding about, this illegal immigration and how, it can help us. He doesn't want to give us anything to how it's going to help us at all. He doesn't have any actual, he just want to try to, make you seem like you're.
Well, think about this for a few moments. Think about this for a few moments. Your constituent said something about illegals. Your response to the constituent was, I don't accept the label of illegals. I don't accept that. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it's real to your constituent. You say you want to represent me, and yet you're telling me that this thing I just told you is real to me is not real to you. That is the first sign of malfeasance of a politician. How can you represent me when I told you what is real to me and you tell me that's not real to you? Well, then why should I have any faith that you're going to represent anything that I've said faithfully? You just told me that it's real to me, but it's not real to you. Well, thank you for clarifying it, but do you realize what you just told me?
Absolutely. I felt the same way. If think more about and in America didn't really take off until slavery ended, and they were losing a whole working base that to me, if we go to a historical point and then I'm saying we can speed back up to one lady, they try to say she was Ruby Bridges. I won't remember her fucking name. I won't remember. I'm sorry for cussing. I won't remember her name because they try to compare her to Ruby Bridges, but the thing is, you guys got over here just to say you're white and try to side with whiteness that was, killing y'all in Zoot Suit riots that Black Americans culture. But to come over here now, you got you're man.
Okay, brother, your phone's breaking up on you there, so I think the NSA is getting a hold of him. I'm going to go ahead and put that down for us for a minute here. Let me go ahead and see if I can jump back over here on Zoom. Let me see if I can get Dominique on Zoom. Is this Dominique from the other day? Yes, it is, Dominique. There you go. All right, Dominique. Well, I'm sure this was a great one for you tonight. I am certain you were very impressed by what you heard. I can't wait to get your feedback on this. And by the way, why is he looking like Milli Vanilli?
Oh, come on.
Y'all, why is he looking like Milli Vanilli up here? Girl, you know it's true.
No, oh my God.
Blame it on the rain.
I'm sorry. That was good. Okay, all right. About Jill Stein, I personally kind of think that she's like literally the ops, especially for like, you know, the Republicans. And her job pretty much is to siphon like those fringe like Democratic votes, the like people that are more progressive, to like vote for her, where she stands zero chance of winning. She will not win, and she knows that. And it's just like, for example, in Michigan, Trump won by 10,000 votes. She received 51,000 votes. In Wisconsin, Trump won by 22,000 votes. Jill Stein received 31,000 votes. In Pennsylvania, Trump won by 44,000. Jill Stein received 49,000 votes. She literally went to Russia and had dinner with Putin. Like, it's like a thing. And then like in her response, she's like, oh, on like Instagram, she was like, hey, sorry, or yeah, like I went sorry about that, like spelled about ABT. Like I was just going to tell them that they shouldn't attack us. Like poor reasoning. My point is like in 2000, Bush versus Gore, right? The election came down to 537 votes in Florida, leading to a 271 to 266 victory in the Electoral College, right? Ralph Nader was the third party candidate in Florida, and he got 97,488 votes. And then we got Bush, the Iraq War. Like he got 99,000 votes. Bush only won by
you say we got Bush and the Iraq War. First of all, let's be clear. With the American social order being what it is, you're probably going to end up in Iraq no matter what. However, certainly you certainly got put on this express train with Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. No doubt about it. The father and the son, obviously, these are war criminals. And it's to the United States shame that those people have not been put on trial at The Hague. So I can't argue with that. However, it's the candidate's job to run. And Bill Clinton would have beat George W. Bush like a drum. Al Gore had already run for president before, so he was already a long-term politician. He was the one who lost that. And you got to take a look at your self-interest. I mean, I'm just saying you shouldn't get edged out. Bill Clinton wouldn't have got edged out. Bill Clinton would have stomped all over him. Barack Obama wouldn't have lost to Donald Trump. Now, he might not win today, but he wouldn't have lost to Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton lost. We all know Obama wouldn't have lost. They would be making jokes about Trump. He'd be a laughingstock. His first run as president would have been his last. So the real issue is, what is it about the candidates? What is it about them that allows a Jill Stein to get that many votes? That allows a Ralph Nader to get that many votes? That allows a Ross Perot to get that many votes? The real question is, where are you lacking that allows them to even breathe?
I think that's fair. And I do think that like that is something that needs to be considered. I feel like a lot of people don't, especially Black people, like don't get their like voices heard necessarily. I just feel like Jill Stein is like kind of insidiously targeting Black people and like offering him like, oh yeah, and you know, she has like a Muslim running mate, and like, which is important in these swing states, Michigan and Wisconsin, you know, and it's just like, she's literally playing us. That's all I'm trying to say, and it is.
I mean, look, I certainly think it's a strategy. It's not one. It's not one that I think. I don't think she's going to be challenging Kamala Harris and Donald Trump necessarily.
She's not going to win. But she's not going to win.
It's certainly a strategy that will get you 1 or 2% of the vote. So that strategy for the people who are just rebellious and they are anybody but the establishment, and that's a real thing, by the way. So if you are the anybody but the establishment candidate, you know, you're going to cast a very wide net because you're not trying to get 50% of the vote, you're trying to get 2%.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of her, like a video of her. She's in Russia at Red Square, like talking about how like awesome some propaganda shenanigans, bro. Like she does not care about black people. She's run twice, and every time she just disappears, bro. She comes, she does a little dance, and then she disappears. And like first, it's impressive that you got her on your show. That like she would consider you like big
Lie.
enough to like come on. But she's definitely like running game, and that's I feel like that's all I want to say
Well, I
because
mean,
it's
look,
just like
I can't speak to people's motives. I don't know the woman to be able to say that and everything. I can take a look at things politically, and I can make some estimations and guesstimations, and I'm pretty accurate in a large variety of things. I'm not gonna say that she doesn't care about black people. As a matter of fact, I think it may be the opposite. I think she's an all of the above person. And that works great for social movements, but it's not effective politically because when you're all things to all people, then you're nothing to nobody. There's the issue is that by trying to be all things to all people, you can't say, hey, I like Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Okay, that's not going to work. Trump's people have interests, they have goals, they have principles. Kamala Harris' folk got that too. And in many cases, they are completely conflicting and counter to each other. So you can't say, bring the folk who are completely against us over here. That doesn't work. That can work in like a classroom. You can have students in the classroom who don't like each other. There's not a vote. They don't get a vote. They get told they have to be there. In politics, you get a vote, including the ability to silence other people. That's why bringing in everybody doesn't work. This isn't a classroom. This is politics.
I think that's what she's doing. Like you said something earlier, like why would someone be running for president? And like her goals, 100%, like they just appear to be like for her personal like financial gain. And like that's it because like she doesn't really appear to be like all too serious. And the thing is, it's like the nature of it is insidious because ultimately she is like doing things that are in support of the Republican Party because historically the Green Party only takes votes away from like Democrats. You get some fringe like libertarians that are secret, like most of the time they're just like right winged or whatever. But like,
I mean, it depends on what's happening. It depends on what's happening here. You're younger. You don't remember Ross Perot, okay? So that took votes away from Republicans. Ralph Nader actually took votes from both, although Al Gore didn't have as many to lose. Nobody knew this was going to come down to just one state in Florida. Al Gore didn't have any to lose by the time Nader got done, so that was even worse for him. Robert F. Kennedy, his voters are almost exclusively folk who are going to vote for Trump. So it really just depends on how things come down. It really depends on how it comes down, where you come down, if you're on the wrong side of it. Where the Democrats have been concerned, they've left themselves open to this.
I should have said Green Party instead of Third Party because like Green Party.
Yeah, I think you did say Green. I think you did say Green Party. You said Green Party, and what I'm saying is that this is just their turn. We've seen this happen previously with folks against Republicans too, and even this cycle right now. Put your arm down. Even this cycle right now, Robert F. Kennedy was,
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. Anyway, I'm trying to help you.
Oh.
Okay.
Am I alive?
Brother, stop. Just quit. I'm trying to help. Robert F. Kennedy was okay until, the Democrats started jumping on him and whatnot, but he was taking votes away from Trump primarily. Yeah, there's a lot of Democrats who are going to vote for him too. But primarily, when you have somebody like Trump who can't afford to lose any votes this time, that's a deadly thing for him. Do you see what I mean?
I could see it, and that's why I think Jill Stein is effective because she's literally like making sure that less people vote for Kamala.
I'm not so certain about that either. I'm not so certain about that either. Let me explain why. There's a lot of folks. So, yes. Tucker Carlson is a different type of neocon. He doesn't want to be in Ukraine. He doesn't support the actions in Israel. So you have a lot of Republicans now who are younger. They're not the Barry Goldwater Republicans. They're the Ben Shapiro Republicans. They're millennial Republicans. They're much more concerned about themselves. So their perspective on foreign policy and getting into some of these messes that the political establishment has in years past, that's not really their thing. So Yes, Jill Stein is
Can I
most
say
likely going to
something,
take
please?
votes away from Democrats, but I'm also telling you that there's a crossover appeal as well that will also impact Republicans. Now, maybe not as acutely as Democrats, but if you're Trump and you lost the election by 48,000 votes, if she gets 1 million votes, do you realize if 25% of those could have been for you? Wow.
I don't think that Trump has a chance at winning, but it does appear like he is getting bodied right now. However, I do think that it is like pretty close. And all I'm saying is like people are shady, and this world is filled with like people that are like driven by self-interest, and Jill Stein is like insidiously targeting black people to siphon votes from the Democratic Party in order to help the Republicans win, because that's like
Well, I mean,
what she
I
does.
certainly think she's getting in where she fits in. I think she's
Yep.
getting in where she fits in, and she's found a receptive audience, even if it's limited. And so, I mean, that's her thing. I don't see this as a political. It's not a political movement so much as a social movement that's trying to influence politics. But it's not really a political thing that's going to flush out politically. This is a social movement. If you are against the establishment, she's your girl.
I think she is very much the establishment, and she doesn't care about the like every man. Like she's having dinner with Putin. With Putin, she does not care about the struggle. It's just her job, her face, her like act.
Yeah, I mean, she's here to raise her profile. She's not going to be able to raise a whole bunch of money, so raise your profile. And she certainly is one of the most recognizable figures in politics, even though she's never won. That's quite an accomplishment. But that's her goal. Her goal is to get name recognition and to try to parlay that into other things. Now, there's where the traction probably is having difficulty catching. But certainly from a social media standpoint, I mean, she's been trying to get her name out there, and she's been successful at that. Converting that into votes has been the problem.
Literally, she's gonna disappear under her rock for another 4 years, and if she might run again, but like I don't know how close
she
it's gonna
will
be next time.
She will run again for certain. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. I wanted to give Dominique a chance to be on and stuff like that. I'm so glad he did. So glad Dominique checked back in. Jason, you were mean to him last time. I said he can call right back. I said he just needs to get off the phone Saturday, but he can call right back. So shout out to Dominique. He's young. Don't worry. We're going to keep working with him. Look, he's been hanging out with a bunch of white girls at the college. Damn! Come on now. Y'all know it. Dominique been hanging out with a bunch of white girls at the college. You know, the girls who like Lenny Kravitz. He been hanging out with the girls who like Lenny Kravitz. Some of them Asian chicks, you know, who like A$AP Rocky or Drake. He been hanging out with them, you know, so it's tough on him, y'all. It's tough. We're asking a lot from him. He's young. Them gals are feeling the hair and stuff. We're asking a lot to get him to decline that. Don't y'all understand? It's rough on him. He's probably got a guitar up in there.
Auntie, chill.
He probably has a guitar back there somewhere. He probably does karaoke. He's all slender and stuff, so you got that Michael Jackson build. So it's just them females be stressing him, man. He's just like, oh, I don't know. See, I actually understand what it is, dude. That's the real problem right there. If I can get you all to understand, Kamala's the future, man. And, you know, it's a woman's right to choose, dude. It's a woman's right to choose, bro. Can't get in the way of that. Free Palestine, bro. So, you know, it's just we're making life rough on him. That's what we're doing. We're making life rough on Dominique. So if we would all chill and just fall back, you know, so he can play his Ben Harper records and if we would do that, we'd make things a little more stress-free on this. Shout out to Dominique, though. Shout out to Dominique. Let me go ahead and remove that. All right, we're done with Zoom for the night. good thing here, good thing tonight. Look, my goal, my job, my responsibilities, make sure that you all are able to make a informed decision. As far as the Green Party is concerned, everyone has asked me to speak to them. I have spoken to the Green Party. We have spoken to them at length. They have had tremendous opportunity to be able to explain and articulate their position. They have done that. Next week is election day. You got all the information that you need. Choose. Time to vote. Go ahead and do that. Also, I will probably be broadcasting live. What? I'll probably be broadcasting live next week. So I usually don't do it for election night, but for this election night, I just might be broadcasting live. It just might be broadcasting live. My only question is whether or not I should have a live audience. What? That's my only question. My only question is, should I have a live audience? Been wondering about that. So I might be broadcasting on election night next week. And if I do, I'm just wondering if I should have a live audience. Okay, I can't say that right there because it'll be like 500 of you show up. Can't have that. It'll be a stampede. So it's just I have to see about that, but that'd be something I would have to think over. But I'm certainly very heavily leaning towards broadcasting on election night, just so I can go ahead and give you the blow by blow and be here live in the studio when it occurs or wherever I may be. So looking at doing that. Keep your eyes and your ears open. We'll see how it comes down there. Great broadcast here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, every holiday, and some days in between. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we are here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, go check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, 8 a.m., going on here now. Working on a few things in that regard. Can't wait for you all to see what we cook up here. Keep your eyes and your ears open. More is coming. The plate is full. Jason season in full effect. Very glad to have all of you here. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in tonight's program, everyone who has contributed, everyone here who's liked, shared, and subscribed. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.